I really respect your attire.
Thank you.
For both Batman-related things we've done now. Previously, you had the Bane shirt, I think. How's it going, everyone? This is Two Left Thumbs. I'm Graham. I'm here with Zach, my number one comic book buddy. We did a video a while back leading up to Matt Reeves' Batman where we wanted to do a wish list and fan cast of that movie. Yeah, we'll try and squeeze those as best we can. I might be able to move too. Oh, shit. Leading up to the release of the Birds of Prey movie, at some point we discovered that there was a Birds of Prey TV show back in 2002.
Hey now, don't lie me with you. I knew that show existed. I remember seeing on the satellite TV guide, along with the shitty X-Men franchise TV show that ran for like a year called like Gen X or something.
I didn't even know that. It's animated or live action?
Live action.
You're kidding me. That exists?
I'm pretty sure it was called like Gen X. It was like...
I've never been more proud of you. Yeah, so obviously that new movie was coming out and thought it would be funny to do this before the movie came out. Didn't pan out, didn't happen. But we still watched this season and still want to just talk about it because it's a special piece of Hollywood history that should be shared.
It's something.
So like obviously we have this new movie where it's being led by like Harley, but the original comic books, I'm pretty sure it was Batgirl, Black Canary, and Huntress. And Huntress is the daughter of Catwoman and Batman.
Yes, in this series. So,
is that not always the case?
So in Birds of Prey comic series spun out of, I guess, the after effects of The Killing Joke. So Batgirl gets shot by the Joker, she's now paralyzed, and she becomes the Oracle, which is basically Batman's eye in the sky.
The guy in the chair.
Yeah, the guy in the chair. Yeah. It was really cute in the series. Her computer's called the Delphi system, and Delphi is the home of the Oracle in ancient Greece.
Oh,
and it was one of those fun things like, this makes sense. And if I'm correct, the original lineup was Oracle and Black Canary, and then they add Huntress, and there's two versions of Huntress because comic books.
Okay.
Legend tells of a caped crusader, Batman, and his one true love, Catwoman. Their passion left behind something extraordinary. A daughter, Huntress.
The modern version of the Huntress, which is in the Birds of Prey comic and used in the new movie. I want to say her first name is Helena. I think her last name was like Bertinelli, and she's the daughter of a former mob boss who had her family gunned down in front of her, similar to Batman.
Oh, damn.
But she has no problem killing. And she's hunting for revenge, hence Huntress.
It makes sense that the new movie wouldn't use the Batman Catwoman thing when they're actively trying to make a Batman Catwoman movie.
Yes.
That would get too confusing. This show, from my understanding, treats all of the Batman movies up until that point as canon, which is very strange. If you watch that opening sequence...
At the very least, the first two. I don't know about Batman Forever, Batman and Robin.
Maybe not.
But everything very much feels Tim Burton Batman.
And in that opening sequence, it took me... It's in like episode 9 of my notes that I finally realized this. I realized immediately that it's basically the Tim Burton Catwoman costume, like as close as they could get to recreating it.
They tweaked a few things on it.
And it's Schumacher's Batman suit. It has the bat nipples. And like I went and like looked up comparative photos. I was like Googling the Batman movies and I found like the side by side and I was like, shit, this is the Schumacher Batman suit.
And one of the videos I saw last night theorized that the Batgirl costume you see in the movie,
which is
really series,
really
is
dope. I really like the Batgirl costume.
The Batgirl costume is a repurposed version of the Batgirl costume from Batman and Robin.
I think that would be Batman and Robin.
Yeah, because that's sorry. My brain just remembered that movie existed.
Right. This particular series, rather than we get the Oracle, we get this Helena Kyle version of the Huntress. Black Canary gets replaced with random teenage drama queen Dinah.
Yes, and
who's there presumably to appeal to like the younger audience.
They bungled it.
When Dinah is first introduced, she has like a skin on skin. She can read their mind, or she sees like flashes of their memories. Yeah. The entire first episode is a very contrived setup for that to be useful, and then it's essentially never relevant again until halfway through the season where she uses it to flirt with a boy, and then sometime way at the end of the season where it again is very useless.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a trap.
So something like 4 episodes in or something, they also introduced that she has telekinesis because they realized if all she does is read minds, then she will never contribute to the team.
Yes.
So that was a fun moment, I guess.
And I feel like for some reason, I could be wrong, because I didn't look into it, but I think they introduced like one other extra power later on. Because I think I made a note of like, oh look, she got another power that makes no sense in my notes, and I was just like, I don't care enough to look this up.
It seemed like in a weekend she became as good of a fighter as Helena.
Yeah. And if I'm correct, forgive me internet if I'm wrong on this, because I'm not as solid on this part, but Black Canary's name is Dinah Lance, and everyone's like, oh, it's Dinah Lance, she's the Black Canary, and then it's like, psych, nope, her mom, you find out later, is the Black Canary. She has all new powers that they don't ever explain, and they just randomly give her new ones throughout the series.
Oh, Dinah.
Yeah, Dinah.
Okay, is that accurate to when Black Canary, the mom, shows up? Is that accurate to Black Canary? It's like the Canary Screech or whatever it was called and all that stuff?
That's accurate.
Okay.
Because like when the series starts, Huntress is already established, Oracle's already established, and Dinah is like psychic, and she sees both of them getting hurt. And then it's like fast forward 7 years. Because the very first episode is her in bed. Like you see the Oracle get shot by Joker, and Dinah and Catwoman get stabbed by random thug number 4.
Yep.
And
yeah, so Catwoman's dead.
Yes.
In this.
And then Dinah wakes up screaming. Her parents tell her she's not safe, like not what she's saying. And then when Dinah gets old enough to be able to buy a bus ticket, she meets Aaron Paul and rides a bus into New Gotham.
Yes.
And arrives.
That was a shocker.
Yes, I was like, wait, what?
And I also love his name was Jerry in this. So I just, even though he only was in the show for 5 minutes, I liked to think of him as Bizarro World Jesse. That was
very good. Very good. And just on the Smallville tip, I don't know why, like the minute that bus pulls in and she walks out of the bus station to, I don't have my notes here, but it was some iconic 2001 pop song.
This is the dress.
Yeah, there's
because there were some interesting choices. Like there's Michelle Branch. They used Tattoo, and
do you mean just in this one episode or across the series?
Throughout the series.
There was a very good, I think, while fighting the Crawler, they played a song from like the Used's first CD when they were still a screamo band.
And I'm nobody's bitch.
Okay,
that was a good choice.
But so Dinah walks out of this bus station. I was like, this literally felt like it was just in the other street of Smallville.
Okay.
Because it's one of those things where it's like when you start watching, when you go back and watch TV shows like this, you realize they just repurpose the same set by like just like, oh, you're on the other side of the street. Like every time Jesse and Helena meet, you're like, oh, it's the street again. It's just like sometimes we're in the stairwell, sometimes we're outside of it. And Smallville was really bad for that too. Once they got to Metropolis, where it was like there were 3 streets and a phone booth, and everything just pivoted around it.
That's really funny. I started to become more aware of it in this series. I don't remember ever thinking about it in Smallville, but I guess I was younger.
Yeah, Smallville I noticed more as like I got older. Because like before that, everything was like out in the country, so you could be like, well, yeah, they have to do all the same stuff because it's
and
country.
Every farmer's field is going to look the same anyways.
Where you're like, you're in a sprawling city, literally called Metropolis, and you're like, okay, we have 2 streets we're allowed to shoot on. And it was the same with this where Gotham, where it was like, so it's this big giant city, and characters could miraculously just teleport to the same location all the time.
Right.
And I was like, even by our standards, this is stretching it.
Yeah. The show at the beginning of every episode has like this 60-second thing narrated by Alfred Pennyworth.
Yes, and I want to ask you a question with that because so I'm stupid. I watched the unaired pilot thinking that was the first episode, and then I watched the actual proper pilot. I got confused because I was like, why is the plot identical? But everything's a little bit different. Right.
I never saw the unaired pilot. So.
And this wasn't at all because we presumably were using not normal screams. Sorry, we didn't say that. I thought I saw somewhere online, because I did try to do some research, where I think that Alfred bit was not in the actual original episodes. It got cut, and then when they re-released the DVDs, it got tacked back onto the beginning.
Oh, so is it not supposed to be at the beginning of every episode? Because it was very strange that they included that at the beginning of every episode, then like a 2 or 3 minute lead-in,
and then
the
credits.
theme song opening.
Because
that's 4 minutes of every episode. 50% of it would be these 2 separate intros. But they were, they weren't original, like setting up the episode. It was the exact same 60-second thing of Alfred laying out the show for you. It takes place in New Gotham.
Yes, which they took a very long time to explain what New Gotham was.
Yep, like absurdly long. I think it's like episode 8 or something. They're like, Gotham fell apart in an earthquake. And you're like, what?
Yeah, because that was the episode with friggin' dude that ran the fight ring because he couldn't get laid.
Yeah, okay, so that's episode 10
of Gladiatrix.
13.
I think there's one other point where they casually mention it, but that Gladiatrix episode is the one that like really hammered it home.
They never explain what the cause of the earthquake was or what's going on there. We learn in like episode 12 that apparently Bruce Wayne still lives in Old Gotham even though it's in ruins. It's like
wait, when was that?
It might even be the finale.
That's the finale. That's the very last shot of the finale. He calls he goes, "Don't worry, Master Bruce, she's good."
Master Bruce, I thought you might want to know. Your daughter's doing rather well. You would be most proud.
I just presumed he was like gallivanting around the world, and Christopher Nolan's like, "That's my ending. I'm gonna have him in Europe."
Yeah, like Alfred. The show ends with Alfred on the phone with Batman, being like, "Everything's going real good here." Hope you're doing well.
And that's a dialogue the directors were like, we've got this. Smallville's taken off. We're getting a second. Oh, wait, we're canceled?
Yeah. So I feel like that's an important piece of history is that Smallville started in 2001. This started in 2002. It's like the same production team or creative team in some way.
It sure felt like it at times. It looked like it.
So I think Smallville must have done well in
its
first
Smallville
season.
Did very well its first season.
My family all watched it. Like, it was great. I think part of what happened with Smallville is they were like, we're going to do pre-Superman.
Yes.
And we'll just focus on that, and that'll give us a ton of excuse to, like, give him character growth, and that we don't have big CG budgets, and he doesn't have to fly around and everything. And so they were like, cool.
No flight, no tights.
Yep, there you go.
That was their slogan.
That's really funny. And then I think, like, that team was like, this is working. Let's do pre-Batman. Wait. If pre-Batman is nothing, that doesn't exist, which they eventually made Gotham. Well, but like I think their plan is that they were like, let's do post-Batman.
Yeah. So they actually want to do pre-Batman, like around the same time as Smallville.
Oh, really?
Because I remember back in the day reading Wizard Comics, which was like a monthly magazine, which is like dove into comics.
I think I never had it, but I know of.
Because they would like cover movies and TV shows, and Smallville was in like season 2 or season 3, and they were hinting at somebody in Gotham.
Okay.
Like, because it was this weird, I think it was a rights thing, where they wouldn't go and say Batman and Bruce Wayne, but like every once in a while they'd like throw like, oh, there's stuff going down in Gotham. Right. And, like just like casual lines of that. And there was rumors that one of the seasons was going to end with a young Clark meeting a young Bruce, and that was going to dovetail into a young Batman series, which essentially would eventually become what we now know as Gotham.
Wait, would it have been like, like a 12-year-old Bruce, or would it have been like year one Batman?
I think it was supposed to be like, he's on the journey, like that, because there's the Christ-like gap in his life where he disappears for like 7 years.
Right.
I think it was supposed to be in that time frame, like he meets Bruce in passing, because like in Smallville he ran into a bunch of heroes. Like he met Flash in passing, he met Aquaman.
Yeah,
they teased Wonder Woman hard at one point.
Oh, we never actually got it.
No, it's okay, we have her now.
Yeah, I think there was just a thought of like, we don't know how to really do pre-Batman very well.
Yeah,
and then like jumping right into a full-on Batman series for whatever reason they were hesitant for. Maybe they just were like, whatever, we already have like this Friday night slot of our young male superhero, let's get like this female super crew.
Yeah, and I know the other thing too is like in the early 2000s, that was when Warner Brothers was literally going, we need a Batman movie, and they were throwing every idea at the wall.
So you don't want to step on that by making a Batman
because
show.
At one point there was rumors that Darren Aronofsky was going to do year one. There was
is that when like Armie Hammer was...
No, that was the Justice League movie that was supposed to be like the mid-2000s.
Oh, that was later.
I think so.
Okay.
There was talk of a Batman Beyond movie. There was talk of just a straight-up reboot, and then eventually Christopher Nolan got the gig. But there was like 4 or 5 different ideas they kept like spitballing, and I'm sure that played into why they were hesitant about
that would
Batman
make a
on
lot
TV.
of sense, yeah. That like timeline adds up, I think.
Because that similar happened with Gotham, was where they're like, you're doing Batman, but you can't use certain names and characters because of the movies.
They like never call Cameron's character Joker. Or like that sort of stuff.
And they didn't eventually make him Joker. I don't know. I didn't watch it until like the very last season where the fans got like so outraged, like, we know he's Joker. Like, no, he's not.
Dave, who's been on the channel, loved that show, and he's told me a lot about it. And I've seen clips. I watched the pilot, and I didn't like it. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. People love that fucking show, apparently.
Because I remember when Smallville debuted, I had a kid on with the bus I would take to school where he was telling me how his family watched Smallville, and it was about Superman, and I was, even as like a 11-year-old, such a jaded comic book fan, I'm like, you're lying to me. There's no way there's a live-action Superman TV show that everyone loves.
Yeah, it was kind of great. It was, I don't know, it's good family fun in ways that Birds of Prey never was.
Birds of Prey references Smallville, too.
Oh, shit. What?
It's somewhere in the first half of the season, there's a bit where they're in the clock tower, and it might be when greatest superhero name ever, Darkstrike, is around.
Darkstrike? Who comes up with these names?
He strikes after dark. It's descriptive.
Oh, yeah, Darkstrike was great. That's totally the dead center of the season.
Yeah, but someone makes a comment about like metahumans of that.
Don't ask me where the powers come from. No one knows. Natural mutations, biological experiments. There's been some really weird stuff from meteor showers.
There's been a lot of that going around. And I was like, wait, is this like... Because I didn't realize... I thought Birds of Prey came first when I was watching it. I knew they were close, but for some reason I was like, Birds of Prey flopped, so like, okay, we'll go with Superman, because people know Superman. Yeah, it was like a throwaway reference to that. There was one point, this is a tangent, but on the metahuman talk that made me very... Like, it laughed in the episode, I went through my notes, forgot about it, laughed again. Huntress and Oracle maintain that no metahuman can have the same powers.
No two metahumans have the same gifts.
Does that come up in the show?
There's literally a point where they're like, do we know who this is? Like, oh, no, it can't be that guy. They don't have that kind of power. There's like, every metahuman has their own unique powers.
Strange.
And then midway in the series, introduced Darkstrike, who literally has all the same powers as Helena.
Yep, he's just male Helena.
And I was just like, what? And
they even dress the same.
Yeah, and like I think, and this is just a general overarching opinion on this series, and two of the things that stuck with me was they didn't seem to know what they wanted their show to be.
Oh, big time. Yep.
Because like it would flip flop between being like Monster of the Week. There was a slight overarching theme, but not a lot. But then they're like, no, we're gonna do this thing with like Harley Quinn, but like Harley Quinn's only like 4 or 5 episodes, and it's like the first 3 in the last 2.
They wanted her to be the overarching villain, but then like rarely was she ever actually present.
Yeah.
And now and again there would be a villain who had their own isolated villain of the week episode, and in the last scene they'd be like, just kidding, it was Harley.
Yeah, like,
but that didn't matter anymore.
Yeah, and then like even just like the pacing and the way the series went was just awkward.
Weird episodes that were way more romance or high school drama focused, and like still try to maintain the usual. The episodes are generally poorly structured.
Yeah, like they just forget to put scenes in like, oh, this is why there's tension there, or like characters just disappear and then come back and like, I'm angry now, but we didn't. Why?
Yeah,
like like Oracle and her boyfriend.
Ooh, that might have been one of the worst handled things of all time.
It was all over the place.
Wade, Oracle's Barbara's boyfriend, shows up, instantly in love with her. It appears to be the first time they've ever spoken to each other, and he is head over heels for this woman.
Barbara, right?
Yes. The new guidance counselor, right?
Goes out of his way in every conceivable way to make this like a working, functioning relationship. She blows him off every single time. And he comes to her like, I'm sorry that I'm not making this work for you. He's apologetic to her. She blows him off again. Like, what is going on there? And then like it was just the most mishandled.
Even in the episode where they finally like
they bang
together, yeah,
in one episode.
One episode they're like they meet, they make a sly comment, literally screen fade, they're in bed. And then you don't see Wade till the end of the episode, I think, and him and Barbara at each other's throats because there's tension between them now. And it's like, wait, what? You were just fine.
They bang. It shows them in bed. He says, I'm going to take such good care of you. She's offended because she thinks he means because she's in a wheelchair. She goes to the clock tower. Her and Helena have like a Sex in the City dish of gossip about them hooking up.
You had sex with Wade.
Shh. Don't say the word sex in front of Alfred.
Oh, please. He's heard it.
And then Wade's not in the rest of the episode. And then the episode like ends with her telling him off for saying that. And it's like, what? That wasn't important for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a really good example, actually. I'm glad you brought that one up. It's super egregious of not maintaining like a thread throughout an episode. Is there anything else like show setup wise? Alfred is their butler in their clock tower base, which I guess you just wouldn't have a Batcave in New Gotham, wherever it is that it's located. The clock tower base is like fine, I guess. The fact that Alfred's there is cool. They weirdly don't address Bruce often. It takes like episode 10 before they acknowledge the fact that Helena is technically the heir to $1 billion, like multi-billion-dollar fortune, and they don't acknowledge that Bruce is still alive until the season finale. So that's very strange.
Yeah, because it was like, I mean, I guess they let you know with like that little intro that we saw from Alfred voicing over, and every time, like at least early on in the series, every time they bring up that like Helena was Bruce's daughter or like the daughter of someone rich, she's like, basically, piss off. I don't want Dad's money. But she somehow had the money to run a clock tower and have all this high-tech shit and have his butler. But, you know, I don't want Dad's money. It was kind of a weird thing.
That was my assumption through all of it. The financier, has to be Wayne.
Yes. I don't know, maybe Bruce put, like, money in an RRSP for Batgirl or something.
To the trust fund she's accessing.
Sorry, you got shot. Don't worry. This will be fine in 7 years.
A weird thing that is brought up immediately in that opening sequence, too, is, like, they're explaining the different members of the team, and Alfred says, and the half-metahuman Huntress, acknowledging that Catwoman was metahuman, which that really took me by surprise. Is that common?
No. Because typically, no. Typically, Catwoman is just, like, cat burglar.
Yeah.
That's surprisingly good ninja skills for someone who's never trained with master ninjas, unless you count hang out with Bruce.
That was my understanding.
But I think because they were trying to like root it in the basis of Batman Returns, and that Catwoman is decidedly supernatural because she gets resurrected by a bunch of cats, not unlike Halle Berry. Because like one of her things is she keeps getting hurt, and she's like, cats have 9 lives.
Right.
But like I think that was the thing of calling her a half metahuman, was trying to keep it in line with those movies.
Okay.
Because they made Catwoman relatively supernatural and superpowered.
Yeah, that makes sense then. Okay, and like throughout the series, Huntress basically punches hard, kicks hard, jumps
really high,
and is very good. She has like no fall damage. She just like absorbs.
She can superhero land.
Yeah.
Also, her pupils change when she's about to fight.
Yeah, she gets cat eyes and a weird close-up CGI. Who knows why that's a thing? Moment.
Recycling footage.
Yep.
It was like Pokemon. You'd be like walking through the tall grass and all of a sudden Pokeball appears, like, well, time to fight. And she would just cut her and be like, cat
I
eyes.
feel like that a little bit, doesn't it?
And then it was the most boring fight over and over and over again.
And my favorite thing in the pilot, favorite because it's so stupid that didn't carry forward, is that her punch and kicks were accompanied by panther sounds. It would be like roars. And
I forgot about that.
As she punched. They ditched that, but I kind of wish they kept it because it was so dumb.
See, when you first said that, I was wondering if you were going to say, when Huntress first appears to save Dinah, who, you say Bizarro Jesse? Aaron Paul, he's like, hey, you got a friend in me. We got to have friends in the big city. Literally next scene, I'm going to rape you. Like, that was basically the gist of it.
Turned on a dime.
And Huntress appears, and, like, you see him get kicked, and then there's a boot holding his throat, and they do, like, a reverse shot, so you now see the body, but it's just a leg. And I don't know how she did this, but it was like Huntress just like slowly rises in the frame, like, I'm Huntress, and then beats the shit out of Aaron Paul. But it was just such a weird angle of rotating where I was like, they did it in the pilot and the on-air pilot, and I'm like...
The fight choreography, this weird filming choice carried through both versions of the pilot.
Yeah, because it was just like... It was like, you could see her one leg, her torso, and the other leg was up, but you couldn't see the rest of her upper body, and it was just like, she panned like... I'm Huntress, and she sells her boot like in his throat, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
Oh man, I don't know if I may have been like taking a note as that happened because I did not.
Because it looked like it was built like by an action figure, like he just like swiveled the hips up.
That's incredible.
And I mean, props to her for being able to do that because I mean, I can't imagine being that flexible. But yeah,
I think I alternate on every episode, being like, that was a cool fight scene. And then like, was it though? And then the next episode being like, that was a really bad fight scene. And I think I was being very forgiving by today's standards. And
sucked.
Like what we get in shows like Into the Badlands or like, I don't know, Daredevil and stuff, they're bad. They're so bad. But like, I was trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, but they're bad.
It was the thing, it was like, it's that awkward thing like us watching with 2020 vision, like, this series sucks.
2020 vision, Zach.
Fuck.
You had to have known.
I didn't. I wasn't even meaning that. I guess I am over 30. I'm creeping into the bad pun territory. But like, so as we were saying, or I don't know where we're gonna put this. Like the pacing issues. Dinah is like, in a nutshell, from the beginning of the series to the end, one of the biggest issues with that I found, because they would just like leave her out of episodes, and then she'd appear like, oh hey guys, and like
I'm fairly confident she's in every episode, but it's like probably an issue that one of your three main characters, I'm not confident in that. Because I think she just disappears a lot.
Yeah, because like the first 3 or 4 episodes almost feel like, they're all like episodes of the week, but they feel like a mini contained episode, like arc where it's Dinah trying to prove that she could be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they finally break down like, all right, we'll keep you, we'll train you. And then like there's no sign of her training or like getting remotely better or talk of it. And then randomly this episode of her just like wailing on a dummy. And Barb's like, you've been working really hard. And it's like, wait, what? No, she hasn't. We haven't seen this.
And then I think in episode 10, the like Gladiatrix episode, which is Female Fight Club.
Yes.
Her and Helena both get like rage toxined, and they go toe-to-toe with each other, and they're like equally matched.
Now, the other thing with that too was Dinah had Oracle in her ear.
Right.
So Oracle knew all the moves. Yeah, she's literally like,
that's true.
Step left, step right. But like, yeah, Dinah went toe-to-toe with like the established hero of multiple years in her like rookie debut and was like, yep, I'm good.
Yeah.
But even like her social life, like there's the episode where she's at school and she bails to go to like, because someone made fun of her and she goes to No Man's Land.
Which is the name of the like bar for metahumans.
Metahumans, yeah. Which was a fun nod to Batman comics, because in the comics, Gotham gets destroyed by an earthquake and the arc is called No Man's Land.
Okay.
So, yeah. But
that's fun.
But I caught it because it's like, she runs away and the group that makes fun of her, there's one girl where she like kind of like looks at her and I'm like, oh, they're setting her up to be a friend. Like, oh, I feel bad for my friends being bitchy to you. And then, like, 3 episodes later, it's already established she's friends with this girl. And they're, like, bantering and all this. And I think that's...
Oh,
and I'm like...
I think I know the girl you mean, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, what?
She's only in, like, 2 episodes.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, what? And then there's nothing. And then it's like, oh, I like this boy. And she's, like, using her powers to, like, flirt with him. And
that is the girl I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and, like, a 16-year-old Dinah gets box seats to, like, a Rangers game or something.
Yeah, and, like, something weird like
that. Pulling all this stuff over, like, okay, someone's dipping into Oracle's RRSPs, like...
Right.
Like, I forgot about it. I looked at it last night. I'm like, I can barely afford like sport tickets, normal seats.
As a grown-ass adult.
Box seats are like thousands upon thousands of dollars for one night. And she's like, oh yeah, I just happened to get these. You should come with me. But like the girls then established there, and fun nod, she was lesbian. That was kind of a cool touch for 2002.
I thought so too.
He's sweet. He's just not my type.
He's everyone's type.
Dinah, you know when I agreed to switch lab partners, I didn't just do it for you.
Yeah, but Matt's lab partner was that girl Gina.
You and Gina? She rocks.
I was like, oh, look at that. This almost makes up for the really awkward, rapey, toxic masculinity stories they do a few times throughout the season.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of bad representations of very inappropriate men, but there's a weird through line in this series where there's never like on-screen kissing or romance or anything, but there's a lesbian couple, Helena's boss is gay, and one of their teachers is trans, and it's all just slipped in the casual conversation. It's Lady Shiva episode. It's like she's catching up with her old high school friend.
And Mr. Loeb from 5th period English class, he's now a she.
And they're like, you don't say. And that's the extent of the attention they pay it. It's like it's not a joke. It's like not. Yeah. There's no further attention paid to it. And like when Dinah's friend is just like, oh no, you go for that guy. He's not really my type. And then it shows her kind of give like a wink to a cute girl, and Dinah's like, good for you.
And like, we can't say it, but it's now implied.
I would seriously credit this show for just being cool about all that. It was kind of a joke, but the joke was never, haha, you're gay. It's
it was just like situational, like, no, I wouldn't find that useful to my bar. Like,
like
very modern humor on that.
Somehow very well handled 18 years ago.
Service with a smile brings him back every time.
Lap dancing brings him back every time, too. You want to try that?
How would I know? I'm gay.
That's a good big plus for this show, actually. Even though it comes up pretty rarely.
And I mean, they also pulled off having a show primarily ran with all-female lead.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to where I have that in my notes, because...
My God, your phone notes are huge compared to mine.
Yeah, I don't care about most of them, but I wanted them there just in case.
I'm watching Graham just like fly through notes, and I brought 2 pieces of loose leaf.
God, I wish. Yeah, I have 9 pages in this Google Doc.
Good Lord. You edited it down?
Case. Dude, I don't even know. It's embarrassing. It's too much.
He flipped through 2 pages twice, and then...
Well, if the pages were sticking together and shit, there's a fair amount in there.
I'm not gonna ask. It was right there. I had to take the shot.
Right. Where did I compliment this in my notes? I thought it would be easier to find. Yeah, just in general, this show is primarily female cast. Like half of the villains end up being female. The half that are male, usually their villainous trait is that they're gross around women. So that's kind of like a weird through line.
So there were 2 specifically. One I forgot about, but in an episode called Primal Scream, a guy's like, I just didn't know what it feels like. And he walks up to her and just kisses her repeatedly. And
the grossest kiss I've ever seen.
Yeah. I was like, watching this like, this is awkward and weird. And subconsciously thought, this is probably the low point of the series. Boy, was I wrong. There's another guy that has a scar on his face, and we've mentioned his episode a few times where he creates female fight club. He's like, I'm ugly. None of you will sleep with me, so you must all die.
Yeah. In between those 2, there was the Crawler, whose entire thing was killing young women who he perceives to have fallen in love.
See, this is how messed up this was. I didn't even consider that as being weird. I'm like, yeah, that's just a sociopath. Fun note on that. Because there was a lot of different points of the series where I'm like, you can very much tell this is coming out in the wake of Buffy.
Okay, yeah.
Like, Helena kind of looks like Buffy in her attire, and like,
snarky attitude.
Helena even makes a reference to Buffy.
Yes.
And the Crawler is... Because that's the guy who you would flip back and forth, right?
Yeah.
The Crawler is the first real villain that Buffy fights.
Luke.
Yeah. And then later the Judge.
Oh, really? Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, okay. When he first came up, I think I looked it up. I think his actor is Brian Thompson. Like, when he shows up in the show, I was like, this guy's pretty freaky looking. I think in my notes, the most delicate way I could think to put it was he looks like a beast freak.
Yes.
The man's voice is insane. He looks like intimidating as all hell. He's the scariest guy around. Yeah. And right away, I was like, holy shit, this is Luke from like the first few episodes of Buffy. And then I Googled it to confirm that. And I realized, which I've never known before, he's Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I was super pumped about that.
Because my thing with it was like, I started watching, like, okay, this is very much the wake of Buffy. How long till one of the like bit actors from Buffy crosses over? And then I saw Luke, and I'm like, there we go, called it.
The only 3 things I know this guy from, he gets his ass kicked super hard in all 3, twice by women. That's this guy's shtick, because he's super big and intimidating and gets beat up by women.
And the 4th, right after the Crawler, the 4th really toxic one was, there's a...
Invisible guy?
Oh, I was thinking the guy that was like, if you won't date me, Helena, we're gonna all die. They do a reunion episode, 5-year high school reunion.
Oh, that's Invisible guy.
Oh, that was Invisible
guy? Yeah.
Okay, my bad. I blotted that part out toward the end of it. I don't think I wrote down that he was invisible in the episode in my notes.
Yeah.
But it's this like nerdy guy who keeps getting bullied, and then he's killing all the people that bullied him, and then Helena confronts him, and at one point she's like, oh, if I make it to the reunion, I'll come see you. Mm-hmm. And then she doesn't go see him, and he's like, you lied to me.
I've loved you my entire life.
Seemed to find time for everyone else.
Does the phrase polite brush off mean anything to you?
Shouldn't have stood me up.
And he lures her to a classroom. He builds this bomb where he's like, if you won't be with me, I'm going to set it off. And then it goes off, and magically, the just regular classroom door keeps all the gas inside the classroom that magically dissolves the guy.
Oracle is on the earpiece being like, Helena, get out of there and seal the door. And she gets out and closes the door.
And just watches. And I'm just like,
that's not sealing a door.
And it was like, I mean, I remember my high school, our doors were barely functioning at times. Right. And I'm like, and you're literally watching a guy like dissolve. And I'm like, I don't think, but nothing else in the room dissolves.
Nope.
Just the human body. And I'm like, okay.
There is a scene in that where this guy keeps turning invisible. He can camouflage. She's chasing him through the high school, and she keeps trying to like connect with him, and keeps like punching holes through walls and windows and shit. And I was like, this is kind of cool. And then the like, I don't know, apex of that scene is that he turns uninvisible in the middle of kissing her cheek, and then he really spastically runs away and trips and falls.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And I was like, this went from really cool to like really fucking weird to really pathetic really quickly.
And like, had he not tripped, it's really creepy, but it like would have worked with the character of him being like, he pops in, kisses her, then leaves.
Yeah.
Because it would build the to use a pro wrestling term, the heat of getting the villain. Like, you want to see him get hit.
Yeah.
Then he just probably biffs it right after. He's like, all right, this guy sucks.
I don't know. I think obviously you're supposed to dislike this guy, but you're supposed to feel a little bit sorry for him, like maybe. But the entire time that Helena is like prowling through the hallways, rather than being like, you misjudged my kindness when we were in high school, or trying to explain that to him or whatever, she just lays into him for 5 minutes, basically making fun of him for being an incel while trying to beat the shit out of him. And I thought that kind of missed the mark a little bit. That was a little weird.
I don't know what's more disturbing. The thought that you've harbored a psychotic crush for years. Or that after confessing to multiple murders, you still think you've got a shot.
I was say, did you want to do a bit where we talk about what we liked about the characters? Because we did mention that. Or do you want to just keep on random shit?
We could get into characters.
Because I got a whole list, too, of like random goofy things. I literally titled it dumb shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of... My dumb shit list is very long. Two random things. I like the theme song more than I should.
Yes.
It's like...
I wrote that down, too. I actually liked it.
It's super 2000s. It's like this chick rock, Evanescence. I don't really know what's going on there.
I may have tried to find it on Spotify.
It has like 2 lines that they just repeat. Start a revolution and something else. And it's catchy somehow.
Yes.
I weirdly give them credit for that. The 2000s fashion was incredible. Everyone's wearing a belly shirt all the time. There's chokers everywhere. For some weird reason, which I think this is just the show, not the 2000s, half of Helena's costumes have Power Girl boob windows. That was quite frequent.
Yes.
The one time Brett walked into me watching the show, she was like, this was from the early 2000s, wasn't it? And I was like, how do you know? And she's like, belly shirts and chokers. That's...
So, okay, on the fashion tip. So there's 2 things I want to talk about. One, people now, like, it's no big deal to flip on TV and you see The Flash in costume, Green Arrow in a costume, and then like you go back like 20 years, like, no! People will never accept them.
Yeah.
We gotta like spruce it up and be different, hence why Smallville, Clark always wears a blue jacket or red jacket with the alternating shirt. They're like, see, it's got to be costume.
Yeah. Whereas here, all anyone wears is shit straight out of the Matrix.
Yes, but I don't know if this was in the unaired pilot or in the actual pilot, but like Helena makes a few comments about it, and I thought it was actually kind of funny how they explained it away, because like Oracle's giving her a hard time, like, why don't you wear a costume? It's not protective. And she's like, I want to go clubbing afterwards. I'm not going to be a fashion casualty.
It comes up a few times, because there's another episode where she's like, masks are itchy. I'm trying to be like tactical and an effective fighter. Like that shit like traps sweat and like, but it also becomes a very major plot point in the last like 3 episodes, I think, starting with the reunion one, and it carries forward that like, maybe if people know who you actually are, it could affect your personal life.
Yeah.
And then, yes, of course, that's what happens. Like, that's the entire point of a mask. And it's very weird how the show just kind of throws
somehow that lesson from Bruce never made it down the grapevine from Alfred. Well, at least Oracle tried.
I guess.
She tried a few times. I feel like in the series, we're at the point where Oracle's like, fine, just do what you want to do. I think you're dumb. Where Alfred's just being like, fuck it, man. You're good.
He's very supportive. I feel like there's a few times where he's like, she makes it work, then why should we parent her about it?
He was very much like the lovable old uncle, just like being supportive the entire time.
Yeah.
One other thing on the fashion, because I remember I made this note. So the one episode where the guy turned into water.
Slick.
Yeah. Ugh. I had a laugh because they're Huntress and Detective Reese. They get trapped in a sauna and they can't get out. And as it's going along, they just start like stripping their clothes off. They're like, look, she's hot, he's jacked.
I think I have a note in my episode 2 thing that was like Huntress and Reese, and then like subnote, both hot, underlined twice.
And on the fashion thing, it's made me laugh because it's like, as someone who plays sports and works out, I see a fair amount of females in activewear.
Right.
I've never seen one in the gym just doing bench presses in like a lacy ass bra. Or I'm sure if we called up our friends that run an MMA gym, because she has this like very like Victoria's Secret bra, and I'm like, okay, I know what you're trying to do, but
if form and function is what you were going with, like a leather trench coat was like not going to be a high up on anyone's list. Yet her, Darkstrike, and Dinah all just wear leather trench coats when Dinah eventually...
Dinah eventually just has like full pleather everything.
Hers is more Matrix than anyone else's probably. She looks like she just stole Trinity's costume and didn't keep the sunglasses.
Never got a code name though. Was that weird to you?
Didn't. That is weird, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That is so weird. Why did they ever bother with that?
Especially since as you noted, the last 3 episodes were like, you gotta protect her identity. Except for you, kid. You're fine.
Yeah,
you're good.
And her mom is Black Canary, and people at this point have found out who Black Canary is, and there's like an entire mob family that's trying to kill Black Canary and hurt her. Dinah should probably protect herself.
Yeah. Like I said, this series didn't know what it wanted to do and would literally forget what it was doing half the time.
Yes, it did. It definitely did. I very much liked, well, I don't know, I like in an ironic way the use of the CG Gotham and CG Huntress jumping around on top of buildings whenever they had to like segue to like yeah. It was super overused. It never looked that great.
It looked like Reboot.
But oh shit, it kind of did. It did look like Reboot.
It looked a lot like Reboot.
But I do credit it for using like a color palette and lighting and things that even though it looks shitty by today's standards, doesn't look like another city. And that's something you and I talked about in our Batman wishlist video, is that Gotham should feel distinct.
Yes.
And I think they attempted that. It just suffers from shitty CG.
Yeah. The other thing that I did like about the fact they do those city shots, because some of them, if I'm correct, the camera would be like...
Yes,
like waving
it was dumb.
But...
I guess it was Huntress flying around or something.
I hated it first, and then was like, it's not going anywhere. I did kind of appreciate it, because it was a more interesting way than be like, Gotham PD. Here's the school. Like, it wouldn't be like the straight establishing shot of a building. Yeah. You would like move there, and then you'd get the building, and then it would happen. Yeah, with that sound effect.
And then it would cut to like Helena arms out on like a wire getting lowered into the scene because she just jumped off a giant building or whatever. That was fine. I'm okay with that. Like you said, it's I guess more interesting.
That like a lot of the stuff that like initially I was like, oh, this is weird. Like I remember like the series felt very claustrophobic. Like I mentioned, like everything's on a small set. The costumes are, oh look, Harley's wearing black and red, not an actual costume. Stuff like that. Because
that's in my notes very heavily.
In 2002, 2001, that's just what it was. Like, even the movies were like that. Like,
right.
There wasn't that acceptance of superheroes, even though everyone was reading superhero stuff and knew superheroes.
They never just went for it. They always tried to, like, make a fun workaround.
Yeah, they tried to be the smartest guy in the room. And more often than not, they look like they had their foot up their ass. But, like, even, like, the fights and that are different. Like, I feel like in the mid-2000s, TV went through, like, a major change. Like, if you look at, like, stuff that was like, oh, this will be our big tentpole for the season coming out in 2001 compared to 2008.
And this is probably right when shows actually had a CG budget.
Yes.
And so, like, we can have a character, a villain, who turns into a puddle of milk and looks like a McPoyle brother. Like, it's like they could do that, and then they relied on it more heavily than they probably should have.
Because, like, Smallville had CG, because they had to, like, Clark's moving fast, and like
that's like the main thing I remember. The fast moving, the X-ray, the laser vision. I don't remember his villains of the weeks being so CG heavy, but it probably was, right?
Some of them were, but like the most part, I feel it was like they did a lot of like practical stuff.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like they were smart with their budget, where Birds of Prey was like, screw it, throw all the money into the CG and see what happens.
I assume they blew it all on those CG Gotham things. This kind of weirdly got dropped too. The first like 5 episodes end with Dinah, Helena, and Oracle on their like clock tower rooftop, looking out across Gotham on what is clearly a green screen. Yes. And that just got dumped eventually, and I think it's like they couldn't afford to keep doing it or something.
There was one thing I did like with those clock tower scenes at the end. Because you are right, like it was every episode ended on the clock tower, and if I remember correctly, episode 1 ends with just Helena on the clock tower. Episode 2 ends with Helena and Oracle on the clock tower.
Okay.
And episode 3, when they finally accepted Dinah, all 3 of them are on the clock tower together.
Okay.
And I was like, that's a fun little bit.
They built to something.
Yeah. But like I said, most part, like they didn't go there again. It was just they would do the clock tower, but you were from the perspective of the city looking in. There was never them looking out.
Yeah, and I just assumed that was like this is too expensive.
Yes.
Which now it's like an effect you can do at home, but like at the time, I guess it ate up budget. I liked. I don't know. I can't tell anymore what I liked ironically and didn't like genuinely liked. I thought it was really funny. Oracle's command center is like 14 different computer screens. I think she only ever uses like 2 of them.
Yes.
She wheelchairs back and forth between them and then does like very basic, it'll like cut to her computer to have like the cool CSI moment, but it's running like Windows 95 and she's just like, I don't know, dragging files around on the screen.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Willie Cortez.
That was just kind of funny shit. Oh, you mentioned we could move into talking about actual characters. That's probably like a good focused thing that we could talk about.
Because I feel like we'll circle around a bit to the dumb shit, and like some dumb shit will come out as we talk about characters as well.
For sure. So I guess we might as well go through the main three. We'd start with Huntress.
I liked her.
I think I did too. I think she was written flat, but I think that actress Ashley Scott did a good job with it. Maybe one of the best parts of the show, like this is a credit to the show if not just the character, is the fact that she's very much Batman and Catwoman.
Yes.
They made the character both of them. She's a flirt and a thief, but she also has this moral code and like stalks people in the night, doesn't kill, but on like 4 separate occasions is really tempted to.
And like jokes, well, why can't we just kill them?
Yeah, they actually made the character like the daughter of Batman and Catwoman.
And like they even went beyond like stating over and over. There's one episode that ends I thought was really cool because I think it's the Primal Scream episode.
Okay.
Because and the only reason I know this is because that was the one I put down as the one I liked the least because there was so much shit packed into it.
You warned me in a text that you had some major issues with that one.
But it ends with her on the clock tower holding Catwoman's mask and Batman's mask.
Or isn't it Catwoman's mask and the cat mask she had been wearing throughout the episode?
I just presumed it was Catwoman and Batman.
I think it was 2 cats.
Either way, like, it created this
masks.
visual of like the 2 sides of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they did a good job too of like at times where she was like she would always reject her father, but like you could still tell that she was Bruce's daughter because she was trying to do the right thing. Like she didn't want to be like she would make comments like I don't want to be a hero, but then when push came to shove, she's like I have these powers, I have to do this, I have to help someone.
Yeah, there's totally a thing. I guess this is moving forward a little bit, where the Black Canary shows up in an episode, and she very much is like, Dinah, I don't want this life for you. And so it's like this dynamic where her parent is there to tell her that she doesn't want it, whereas Catwoman's dead when Huntress is like a kid. And so I guess
like in her teens
I guess that was like her Thomas and Martha murder moment that made her want to become a vigilante. It was like never a question. She like, this is what Huntress does. Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's ever been a debate for her.
Yeah, and I think the thing too is like Bruce when he becomes Batman is like I'm gonna get vengeance on my parents, but it's like I'm gonna do the right thing, like save the entire city. Where Huntress even has a line where she's like, I wanted my father to kill the man who killed my mother. And she's like out for vengeance, but she's like, I'm gonna more toe the line. I don't mind if I not cross the line, but she like got real close to it a few times, like willing to like inflict more harm.
Oh yeah.
A little more like she's more of a loose cannon kind of thing.
Which is fun.
Yeah.
I think that was a fun
And that was the thing, was like I found with her and then like with some of her relationships with such as like the cop later where you can tell it's like we're doing the Batman Gordon thing, but we're gonna spin it. It was good where it's like she feels, like I said, very much Batman's daughter, but it's unique, it's different. Like there is a struggle inside her. We're trying to do the right thing. And by the end of this season, she's like kind of fully embraced who she is. She realized that like it's not necessarily the name that makes her; it's she can make the name herself.
Yeah, I think there's like an arc there because it was the Huntress show.
Yes,
and Dinah was there. And Oracle was the sidekick / like guy in the tower, man in the chair, whatever.
She was like awkward, like the sidekick and the mentor.
Yes. Yeah, and they never seemed to know what they wanted to do with her. And then Dinah was supposed to be the protege, but everyone ignored her.
Yes.
And she sucked.
Yep.
Yeah. Do we talk about Dinah? I synthesized this from my notes. Episode 1, I don't think I really like Dinah. Episode 4, Dinah's really annoying me lately. Episode 6, Dinah hasn't done anything in like 3 episodes. Episode 9, I fucking hate Dinah. She's so goddamn annoying. Episode 11, Dinah never does anything. Episode 13, I hate this character more than like I've ever hated a character. And I think it's somewhat unwarranted. I don't think it was that bad, but that character infuriated me so much.
And so I didn't quite have that far, but I think my very first episode, my first note on Dinah was, oh good, she feels like Buffy's sister.
Oh.
Eventually in Buffy I grew to like Dawn, but when she first gets you're just like, get her off the screen.
Wet
this is annoying.
Blanket, can't fight, can't contribute.
Just annoying 15-year-old brat, and that's what Dinah was, and it was just like, yeah, cool.
They clearly wanted her to be the in for like the younger audience, but she spends more time hanging out at the No Man's Land bar than she does at her high school, and then anytime she is at her high school, the drama there is just bad. Like worse than shows that are built around high school drama. Like this show didn't know how to do that, and so they just like kind of didn't. The guy that she hits on in that one episode where she like reads his mind, I had to look it up because I was confident that this guy was definitely too old to play a teenager. At the time of filming, that guy was 30 years old, and he looks it. Like, Why? They just clearly never knew how to handle the high school stuff. Fucking Oracle is a teacher, and Oracle's boyfriend Wade is a teacher at the school. Presumably he's a teacher. I don't even know.
I think so.
That's probably the only reason he's there. And that is never utilized in any way, shape, or form as like a plot point.
You see them have a date at lunch break, and you see like Barbara leaving the classroom a few times, and that's about it.
Yeah, but like it never plays into Dinah's drama of trying to become a hero, trying to work alongside her mentor, who's also a teacher at her same school. Never matters. Not important. Almost no one seems to work. Them going to their jobs rarely happens. I didn't know what Helena's job was till like episode 9 or something.
I knew she was a bartender because there's a shot in one of the first episodes where she's behind the bar, and I'm like, wait, she's a job?
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, this kind of makes sense. She didn't want Bruce's money. And then I'm like, when does she sleep?
A bartender is a really terrible cover job if you want to have
a secret identity.
And you want to free up your evenings to go fight crime.
Yep.
That never made sense to me.
Because it was like she's always off at like 11. Because there's one scene where she's like trying to get a shift off, and she's talking with her boss.
Double shifts every Saturday for the next 2 months.
Thank you.
That doesn't seem like a worthwhile trade-off.
And then like whenever there was stuff in the day, she was awake. She had no problem. It was like
Yep, they just did their usual, I don't know, staring at the computer screens gig throughout the day.
Yeah, it was just, I thought a few times, like, okay, I guess the bartender makes her relatable, but also sleep? I know that's not going to be something you're going to convey in a TV series, but...
Yeah, it was that was a weird choice. The second Black Canary showed up, I hated Dinah more. Her mom was so much cooler and more interesting than her.
Fuller House, yes. Sorry. The fun part is, that actress is now back in the DC television universe.
In, like, Legends of Tomorrow or something?
She is playing a character in Batwoman.
Oh, okay.
And I think she's a villain, and she's just, like, a screw loose, because, like, I watched it, I was like, that's not her at all. And I'm like, look at more pictures, I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess people age, right?
I mean, the actress was actually young in this show, so she would look probably decently different. Oracle, the other main.
She felt very much right out of the comic books.
I loved it. Yeah. I liked Oracle. There was, like you said, there was a mishandled thing of her being a mentor and a sidekick. I think the worst part is that when things got really intense, she would feel very useless. And it was like 2 or 3 times she would strap on this like bio leg thing that she had built, said she could walk around and be Batgirl again. And it was like, that really sucks that they didn't make the character like feel useful as Oracle. She contributed, but when things got really bad, it was just like, well, you need your legs back. And I was like, that is a terrible message.
I had an issue with that, not because of that, but I remember as I watched it, like, there were like little moments where she would be like training herself. Like there's one where she's in the wheelchair and she's got her like little nunchucks or
whatever, the sticks,
the
Daredevil sticks.
Yeah, the Daredevil sticks. And I was like, and I remember thinking, I was like, what if this is gonna pay off? Like, is someone gonna attack her and she's gonna beat the shit out of them in the chair?
She did beat people up from the chair like twice.
And then like, cause it was like that happened, and then there's an episode where she's like, they'd established and they promptly dropped it that her wheelchair, she could run it like by her brain.
Oh yeah.
Because in episode 2 she has a date and she's just like cruising around doing her earrings and makeup, and Dinah's like, how are you doing that? And she's like, oh, it's this thing I built. And I'm like, okay, are they teasing like maybe she can get up at one point? And I think Dinah even goes like, so you can maybe walk on it? She's like, well, that's the dream.
Yeah,
and like a little bit later on in the series, she's like tinkering with this like big contraption. And they're like, and she's like, oh, if this works, I'll be able to walk again. She does it twice. She does it against Lady Shiva, which that episode in itself I liked, with a very big plot hole in the middle of it.
Okay.
And then she does it at the very end of the series.
And I think the Lady Shiva one was less problematic.
Yes.
Because it's like an old villain from Barbara's past who knew her as Batgirl, doesn't know who she is as Oracle. And so she uses it to walk so that she can stand down Lady Shiva as Batgirl and forgive her.
Get up! I can't.
Because, and I think the explanation was really good.
I had to stand to apologize so she'd know it was real. Or else she'd think I was afraid to fight.
That she didn't want Lady Shiva to accept the apology out of pity that she was now in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really cool. And it's totally this gambit because Lady Shiva just like kicks her and she falls over.
Yeah, she
and
gets like 2 steps and then crashes.
Yeah, and I was like, shit, that was a cool way to use that. But then like in the final episode where she was like, I guess I need to walk again in order to help, that was less good.
And like that was the thing was like, I think if we hadn't seen her walk in the Lady Shiva episode, that moment means so much more against Harley Quinn, where she's like, fuck it, I'm going.
I will give it credit because when like Alfred or Helena or someone finds her just like on the ground after her leg thing failed, she's like, Barbara, you can't do this. Like, you're jacking straight in your spine. You could make yourself a quadriplegic. You could kill yourself. Like, you know this is unstable and risky. And so I like that they established that this is like something that she's like very much taking her life in her own hands. So maybe, I don't know, there's a balance there where it's the message it sends is wrong, but I think they set it up as carefully as they could. I will say, folding this in with Alfred, I loved this Alfred.
He was amazing.
He was so kind and sweet. He's like kind of like this peppy guy. He's pretty silly. He's not as scathingly sarcastic as I would have wanted, but it comes up now and again.
Yeah, because like there's, because I think at one point he says something, and like Helena's like, "How is it you complimented me and insulted me at the same time?"
And if she feels she can manage where others have failed, then I'm sure she can succeed.
How do you do that? Support me and undermine me all in the same sentence.
It's a British thing.
Yeah, he's got some good moments like that.
He felt very in line with like that era of Alfred, like the movies, and like the guy that got the friggin' disease in Batman and Robin. And like even it felt like a warmed up version of the animated series Alfred, because that Alfred was always very caring, but he'd always have like the snarky comment,
and he always had his nose up and like warmed up version of animated series. I like that. That is totally, that captures it, I think.
The only knock I have on that Alfred is coming on the end of the series as everyone's telling Barbara that she should try and make her relationship work with Wade. She's like, I can't do it. So Alfred's like, well, if you won't do it, I'll do it for you. Wade, come on in. Welcome to Watchtower, or whatever the hell it was called.
That was very strange. I don't know what that was. Maybe he regretted not interfering with Bruce's love life more or something, but they didn't establish that. That's like me reading into it.
Yeah, there was just no explanation for why the guy that's been like around heroes for years be like, maybe protect her identity. I was like, actually,
give that shit away.
I know you slept with him like only once. It's fine. Come on in, man.
If you made a list of the best scenes of the series, all of them are every time Alfred and Oracle share a scene with just the two of them. Yeah. Because all those scenes are them talking about like how things used to be and like how things have changed and are different. And like one of the sweetest, best moments in all of this is in the episode where Oracle like tries to become Batgirl again, is Alfred gives her a speech of like, Oracle's a better hero.
I'm not the hero I once was, Alfred.
Oh, thank goodness. Batgirl was strong but impetuous. You've grown into a thoughtful, beautiful woman with the capacity to care more for others than you do for yourself. Now, if that's not a hero, I don't know what is.
Oracle's who I want having my back or whatever. And I was like, that's great.
Yes.
That's a good message and good scene and good like chemistry and history and everything about that worked for me.
Yeah.
Alfred was super underutilized. He was only in like half the episodes.
Yeah, I think so.
He definitely should have been in there more. Got to acknowledge his final episode. Does he say Buttle or Butler this when he cocks his shotgun?
Mistress Harley, buttle this.
Felt very no Matrix. Idea. But either way, it was great.
That actually felt almost in line with the comic books, because a few different times he gets a gun and tries to fend people off from Wayne Manor.
I do love that he didn't shoot anyone. He cocked that gun, and then the fight started, and he started hitting people with the butt end of the gun.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. Not a single shot fired. I feel like I saved other Alfred lines, because he had some great things.
Eavesdropping isn't very polite, Alfred.
A good butler does not eavesdrop. He discreetly overhears.
Yes. Like, that sort of humor was, like, there was moments like that where I was like, that was a genuinely funny line. I don't know if I had much more to say about Alfred. I just liked him.
Yeah, I was like, what do I have? Loved him. Sarcastic, witty, and warm.
Yeah. Reese, other than being super hot, I liked Detective Reese, I think.
I did too. I actually liked him.
There's, like, a very meaningful, well-done arc throughout the series of him being the best, like, most by-the-book cop, to him having to flirt with some like vigilantism himself, to having to completely go off the book, to that being like devastating and almost getting his partner killed. So him tipping way back to buy the book again, but then that's like also not working. So he has to learn how to like meet in the middle. And I thought that was all really cool.
Yes.
I liked all that.
Yeah, that one worked really well. And like, because it builds to, I think, was it episode 9, Nature of the Beast? Because that's the one where sorry, all the characters got like pushed in like shades of gray. Because that's the one where Reese's dad is a crime lord.
Oh, is that what that episode was?
So his dad comes back and wants to get out of the crime world, so he goes into protection with the cops. Reese knows people come after him, so he gets Huntress to help. But he's also the reason the Black Dinah's mom died earlier in the series.
Yeah, Reese's father, something Hawk. Yeah, which I thought was funny that the crime boss family is Hawk instead of Falcone. I thought that was funny. Well, yeah. Maybe they're the birds of prey.
I didn't even think of it. But like you had Reese, he finally explains why he became a cop, and that was actually a bit of a. That scene got reworked from the on-air pilot.
Oh, okay.
Like not the full dialogue, but like Helena calls him out on why he's a cop and all this stuff. But he gives a speech about like he didn't. It was like he didn't really understand what his dad did at first, but he just knew it was bad, but he didn't care because he could drive his dad's car. Because it was like this. He was a 16-year-old who could drive this kick-ass like hot rod or something.
And then he walks around back to check the trunk, and there was all this blood inside. I mean, was everywhere. So the next thing I know, I'm getting my face slammed on the hood of the car. He's getting ready to read me my rights. He takes a good look at my driver's license and he sees my name. He just takes off. He was so damn scared of a 16-year-old kid and a name. I mean, after that, I just couldn't fool myself any longer as to who my father was. I couldn't live with it either. So I don't know. Maybe I'm still just trying to find justice for whoever's in that trunk.
Yeah, there's like a cool thing where he like didn't like being above the law. He knew his dad was into like bad shit and like.
So he was trying to right wrongs to balance the ledger, and then so you have him finally explain that to Helena. Helena's finally warming up to when she explains to Reese how her parentage is like a struggle, and they're both like they have this moment like together where they start to grow, but they've also like, oh, we're more than just who our parents were. We're somebody else.
Mm-hmm. There's a good like shared arc going on there as well.
And then even like Hawk gets pushed from being like completely evil to like you realize. Yeah, he's a crime lord, but he's trying to leave. He's trying to do the right thing for his wife.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be, like, a criminal anymore. But then there's, like, I think a good payoff there where it's just like, well, he's not totally... He's still, like, a little bit evil. And, like, when Reese realizes that, he, like, books his dad.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a nice, satisfying, like...
And even Dinah, because that's the moment she realizes that, like, even though they're heroes, like, they can't cross the line because she's set to kill Hawk, and then she finally breaks down and saves them.
Yeah, because Dinah wants to, like, get vengeance for Black Canary, who very tragically got killed. I really thought that was going to be a fake out and that character would come back. They just straight up killed Black Canary.
In the most convoluted way possible.
Yes, the Cobra machine.
Yeah,
which like why? Just in general, why it didn't make any goddamn sense. And as Hawk is giving a speech about like I'm going to win this battle because I've trained for years, meditated every day, I have more focus, and then he gets interrupted because he gets clubbed in the back of the head.
Nothing will distract me from your death.
You sure about that?
And that the Hawk is only in 2 episodes, played by 2 different actors, so they have to come up with this convoluted thing of he got plastic surgery to exit the crime family, and so I don't know...
I mean, they set that up, though, with his last appearance, because he got caught in an explosion.
It's so goddamn confusing, because it feels like an emergency repair of the actor was no longer available, but they did set it up. But, like, why? Like, it was so confusing.
And I found him way more interesting as, like, the weird Zen... Buddhist guy that was out to murder than a generic crime lord.
And I recognize both actors, and I think just based on like fit for the character, his Buddhist Zen thing was way more interesting. I liked that portrayal more, definitely.
He felt like super evil Stick from Daredevil.
Yeah, he was kind of like, it did remind me, he's got that like skinniness, but he's still intimidating or whatever.
He was like a dick to everyone, but then he's like, but don't worry, I'm really calm.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that. With Reese and Huntress, one of my favorite parts of the show is like kind of building what we were saying before, how Huntress is like this Batman and Catwoman thing. So then through Reese, they're able to do a really fun thing where it's simultaneously Batman and Gordon and Batman and Catwoman. Like Reese kind of stands in for both, in that they're like a vigilante and a detective working together, going off the book, trying to like figure out how this relationship's going to develop, but continually flirting with each other as if it's Batman and Catwoman. Yes. And there's like a point where they're really getting quite close. There's one episode that opens with like a 1-minute long scene of them talking about meeting up and getting together and like fighting crime together, done exclusively in sexual innuendos.
I guess I just didn't realize it was going to be so fast.
I'm known for my response time.
You think about what I said?
About taking it to the next level?
Something a little more hands-on. See what kind of fit we are together. Just an experiment, though. I mean, no strings.
I'm a little commitment shy myself.
And I thought that was impressively well written, actually. Like, it was very funny.
I feel like they were, like, next to, like, the Alfred bit, like, Helena Reese were, like, the most well-written parts. Like, that got the focus of, like, oh, we have something here.
And that worked so well. I really like that up until the very end when they hook up, because then it isn't fun and flirty anymore.
Yeah.
And, like, if they ever made another season of this show, I think they would have realized that was a horrible mistake, and then they can never break up. Or if they, I don't know. I think that was a terrible choice for this show.
We'll see what stats, because, like, one, I'm impressed that they, like, waited till the 11th or 12th episode for them to hook up.
Yeah.
To the point that, because for sure, I think in the final episode, Huntress makes a joke about how he can use his ring to call her for a booty call. Like, not explicitly says it, but like, she's like, hey, if you ever want to see me, just hit the button.
The most on-the-nose symbolism I've ever seen in my life. Like, rather than having the bat signal, they gave a ring. So it's like the partnership is giving a ring. Okay, guys. A little on the nose.
But if you want to do, like, the whole Catwoman thing, like, if they say, well, they were to do magically have done a second season, it could be like, oh, Helena's gone a little too far, now they're separated, and then they still come back and flirt together. Because that's like, Batman and Catwoman have done that for years, where it's like, fuck you, and then, like, a year later they're back together.
That's true, they have done that
to the point that in the comics they were going to get married, like recently.
Okay,
and
okay.
the issue that was building up to their marriage, it was really cool because I don't know if I mentioned this in the last video. I may have. But like the comic is narration from both characters, and they're writing letters to each other.
That's an interesting,
and
that's like a narrative device that feels very like novel-esque, not like a comic book thing. That's
So it was like, as you're reading, it's like, this page is all Bruce, this page is all Cat. When you flip it, it keeps going. And it's them going through their day leading up to the...
That's so loud.
Don't worry, when you watch this back, you'll see me spilling myself about 4 times.
I was trying not to... Do you want... Okay, I'll let you finish this point, but...
It's like them going through like their wedding day, like, you know, like getting the dress and all that shit. And Bruce's letter is explaining how he is a better Batman because he has Catwoman in his life. And her letter is, I'm holding you back. You're a better Batman without me. And so, like, she stands him up at the altar, even though the altar's on top of a building.
They had to do, like, a secret wedding?
Yeah, because they're going to do, like, where we first met. So it was, like, Alfred, one of the Robins, the girl from Dark Knight Rises. But yeah, it's this, like, moment of, like, that's the tragedy of Batman and Catwoman. They're, like, always almost there, but then something kerfuffles it and they go separately. They're probably having a baby now. I don't know.
I saw a picture of pregnant Catwoman, and it's like pregnant Catwoman and Batman standing on the top of like a gargoyle on the top of a building or whatever. And it's like, how did she get up there? She's like about to burst.
God.
I'm pretty damn interested to see the Matt Reeves dynamic, how they choose to handle that. Super separate thing. I just am very interested. One of the other like main characters, I'm slipping this one in there. I really loved Gibson.
I did too.
Yeah, okay,
he
good.
Was so weird and goofy. And No Man's Land had one of the funnest like Batman nods. Because to get into No Man's Land, they had to go to a statue head, flip it open, press a button. And that was Batman 66 where the wall would open and they would go down the poles.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's great. I like that.
The only issue I had with Gibson, and this was just, again, bullshit plot hole that these writers forgot about. There's an episode where there's a metahuman hunter. And he's out just murdering all the metahumans.
Oh, yeah. That's like the third episode or something, yeah.
And so they're in the clock tower, and Oracle's talking to Huntress. She says, don't worry, I called Gibson. He's going to put the word out. Lie low for a while, all metahumans. And then it just cuts to No Man's Land, and it's just full of metahumans. And Gibson's just pouring shots, and they're just hanging out. And I think Dinah shows up. And I'm like, but you just said close the bar down? But...
yeah, they didn't do that.
No.
I'm pretty...
And then he kills people at the bar.
Right.
Like...
I'm pretty sure Gibson's power is that he's never forgotten anything.
Yeah, he has a photographic memory.
But like not like of every detail that supposedly like there's like a joke at one point where someone's like, Gibson, you can't know that. And he was like, I remember the womb. And or there's like weird shit where someone else is like, that's absurd, Gibson, that can't possibly be true. And he was like, I think I'm pretty reliable. I remember how many nose hairs my pediatrician had.
Yeah.
And it's like the character is just fun like that. And the guy who played him was like off the walls and fun. I think I liked that character.
Yeah, it was...
and he was utilized the exact right amount.
Yes.
He would have been very irritating if he was present anymore. He was just sprinkled in just enough, I think. I did enjoy it. My note from episode 3, which is like maybe the first time he came up, I think.
I think so, yeah.
And he said, Helena talks to me, he said something about like...
No way, you heard me.
Quite right. Lime mandarin soap, with just a hint of New Gotham grime. Recognize that scent anywhere.
My note was, is Smell Guy supposed to be a dork or a player? And like, I guess the joke becomes that he's a dork who like wants to be a player.
Because like he even gets to take Helen on a date to the high school reunion.
Yeah,
and he's like, shall I put my hand here? And like he like lowers it down her back a bit, and she's just like, up now.
Yeah. I do think she treats him a little bit too much like shit.
Yes.
Because he like has this huge crush on Helena, and it's like a fun running joke, but rather... I don't know, maybe it's cruel to be like a tease. Maybe this is the right angle, because she shuts him down very hard every time. Maybe that is kinder than leading him on.
There's a few times where you're like, man, this is harsh. This guy knows he's not getting, like, you're not going to get over, but did you really have to, like, hit him that hard with a bus?
Yeah. I think that character was weird, and I liked him. My number one biggest gripe, I think, with this show, and a show that has a lot of problems with, like, pacing and things like that, Harley Quinn. The first episode starts, or like throughout, has this thing of Huntress is seeking therapy and she's talking to this therapist. Huntress leaves and she closes the door and it's like the office of Dr. Harleen Quinzel.
Yeah.
But in the show, this is like Harley Quinn. Like she had Joker exists. She has dated Joker. She
calls him Mr. J at one point.
Like once. And like she is technically the Harley Quinn that we know, but never acts like it until kind of the last episode, but even then not really.
Go, Gibson! Everyone watching will go mad. Ranting, writhing, stark raving, full metal jacket nuts!
Yeah, they lean more into like her being a super intelligent villain than being like what we know as Harley Quinn.
Yeah,
which I found interesting, but I also could see why it's like this doesn't make sense.
It's super weird because it's the first live action Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn literally only existed for like 10 years at this point, and for whatever reason, they just threw it away. They were like, we're not gonna. She'll say Mr. J once or twice. Her costumes will normally be red and black. That's about the extent of what we're pulling from this character.
Her final costume almost got Harley Quinn-esque.
Oh, it's so
because it was
bad,
like it had a scoop, but then the collar was black diamonds coming down to connect to it.
I think someone made that the morning of. They were like, should we give her like a costume? And like it was a dumb costume. But there is a costume earlier in the show that is better than the season finale Harley costume. They gave her a good Harley costume randomly in the middle of the show.
Because like all of her outfits always end up being like some variation of like the red and the black and the white.
Yeah, and like usually they're kind of like pantsuits.
Yeah.
There's one
She means
one
business.
that's really good. Should have just printed out my notes because this shit doesn't. It was way too many pages of notes, and then it gets compressed onto a phone screen, so it's like 4 words per line. I'm control effing my.
It's like
bringing it up here. I don't know, if they never were going to give us a good Harley costume, then they might as well have given us something that's more far removed.
What do you mean she's got diamond earrings? Diamond earrings are her costume.
I mean, like, I liked this. I was like, oh, this is a fun homage to what a Harley costume could or should be with this, like, businesswoman version of Harley. And in the final episode, they're like, she gets a supervillain costume, but it's basically a morph suit with diamonds on it, and it was very tough.
I mean, on the bright side, it wasn't a leather jacket and pants.
That's true. I should give them credit for that, because that's what
they showed some restraint.
That's what everyone wore in every damn... God.
She had one really funny line. Someone brings her money. She's like, what am I going to do with all this money? I have so many guns, bombs, and shoes to buy. And it was just like, oh, God. This is really funny, but also really bad.
They wanted the character to have this... maybe it goes back to what you were saying. They just never knew what they wanted to do. Because she's like this professional psychiatrist, and then every time it's behind closed doors, she's like this twisted maniacal...
She's the emperor.
But like she didn't play the insanity very well, or they didn't write it very well. And she's only in like 5 episodes, even though she's the big bad of the season. It never mattered.
She was more like Lex Luthor evil than she was Harley Quinn evil.
I think they wanted her to be Lex Luthor because it's the villain, but they are like close with Huntress. But they never made us care about Harley.
Yeah.
She doesn't come up very often. She's not like becoming evil. She's clearly already like, I think it was supposed to be like the equivalent of Smallville Lex, and they just didn't do it. They just didn't. Harley. Didn't like Harley. Was not utilized well. Didn't fit.
I had her marked in as fair.
Yeah.
I was like, it's interesting to see her be like the super intelligent villain, but also you didn't put her in enough, and that's what all I had.
Yeah. Do we want to get into things like favorite and worst episode, or is it just kind of like we kind of are covering that through our bouncing around? In this...
I mean, I could do a rip apart and a better explanation of Primal Scream.
Because we can still do it. I'll do
because I covered my best episode already when I talked about
Lady Shiva.
Lady Shiva, but also the Nature of the Beast one, which was one because
I may have undervalued that episode.
Because when I went back to my notes, that was the one that was like, you know what, I really got stuff that worked in here. But the Lady Shiva one, I wrote in my notes, this is my favorite episode so far.
But probably because it was so much Batgirl.
Well, it was just, I think it was again like everyone kind of got to do something, and it covered like both worlds. And
I think my toss up was either the Lady Shiva episode or the finale. The season finale was had some major issues, but the stuff that worked was kind of good. I liked that the Lady Shiva one felt like it embraced the comics a little bit more than like anything else in the show.
Also, I very cool to put Lady Shiva in a friggin' anything. Because it's like a B-list character, but she's also key in the Batman mythos. And when Bruce gets his back broken, she's the one that helps train him to come back.
She's also like one of the only people other than like Batgirl flashbacks who gets a costume.
A legitimate costume, minus the giant hooker heels. I like the big pumps. I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
I guess that's another thing that's like it's a villain from a different era.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of the idea of why she got a real costume.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, that would work.
But, like the huge knock against it and the entire show is anytime there was a new character within the first 3 minutes of they were the villain. Someone else new showed up on screen you haven't seen before, they were going to be the villain. Yeah. And that was true every single time, and it became frustrating how predictable it was and how much they banked on that. Oh, I also knocked the Lady Shiva episode for having too much Dinah. A character that I think didn't show up in the show enough to be worthwhile. The one episode that she was in a lot, I didn't like her.
What, you didn't like Sandy writing her BuzzFeed article about embarrassing moments of Helena to Dinah?
Good.
Little ammo for the sibling wars. Your top 10 most humiliating moments in high school. We're at number 5.
That was also the episode where she uses her powers to hit on that guy, and that was a dumbass storyline. The finale may have actually been the best. Getting into some of why I liked it a lot. The opening like setup is that this scientist has been, I don't know, pressured, forced by Harley to build a machine that transfers metahuman abilities. The look of the laboratory, the look of the machine, the weird lighting of it, the insanity and like over the topness of all of it felt super like Jim Carrey in The Schumacher. Yeah. Like there's specific scenes with the Riddler that I was thinking of during that entire thing, and I just had this weird moment of like, what if the entire show embraced that aesthetic and tone? That would be such a weird goddamn show, and it would be so unique and different
and interesting.
I kind of wanted that. It made me really excited. One more piece of credit I can give the finale is that it kind of did Kilgrave, like 12 or 14 years earlier, like the Jessica Jones season 1 villain. The idea of someone having mind control.
I was like, what? Batman characters Kilgrave?
No. But then for whatever dumb reason, they gave the power to Harley because they wanted to insist that she was the big villain, when really it should have just been its own character. It really should have been. But the moment of Harley using the power on Gibson with she just, he has to do anything she says.
Bark. Like what?
A dog.
What kind of a dog? Bulldog, Dane, Irish Terrier, Mastiff, Pekingese, Shar-Pei, Wolfhound.
You pick.
Like, that scene was really funny, and so I was already making a note of, like, this is funny. This is actually, like, a really well-played thing.
Of course, there are many different kinds of animals that bark. So that deer, hyena, spider monkey, squirrel, tree frog. There's even a kind of locust that makes it sound very much like a...
Then it builds into Lose Your Mind, and I was like, oh, that's a very, I don't know, Harley or Joker, nerve gas type, like... It's like traumatic and horrifying, but like also carefully not gory or anything.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was well played.
And he played crazy fairly well.
I want you to lose your mind.
And the payoff of that is that the crazier he got and like latched on to Harley, he became her hyena. Did you get that was kind of because he was walking around on all fours, he was barking. He brought up hyenas earlier.
I didn't get that until one of the videos I saw last night. Because like, was this supposed to be a stand-in for him being a hyena? That's horseshit.
I thought it was kind of funny because obviously they can't have hyena.
My thing that when I watched that was because like as the episode went along, he kept like climbing up higher in the clock tower, and so it was like everyone's fighting. This guy's just doing like this in the lights for no reason. I'm like, he's gonna die. Like he's gonna fall out the window.
Yeah, it really seemed like that would happen.
And then nothing.
Instead, they just made fun of him for being a King Kong fan at the end.
Yeah. I also have one comment on that final fight. We've established that Helena can jump great heights because she's metahuman.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we can argue that Barbara can jump great heights because she now has bionic legs. Harley Quinn just casually jumps like a story and a half.
Yeah, I agree. That was dumb.
For no reason.
I guess the chemicals gave her powers, but we don't even know if the chemicals were a thing or happened or like, I don't know, her backstory is never developed or ever.
Also, why was that entire fight scene shot from like the roof down and like rotating?
Were they trying to show off their set?
I don't know. But it was just like everything was like a top-down fight, and it was like, am I playing Age of Empires?
Talking worst episode, I had a lot of trouble with that because there's a lot of forgettable episodes. Like, rarely are they like end to end a bad episode.
Yeah,
it's just very forgettable most of the time. You have told me your pick, one where Helena goes like undercover with like a street gang, and they all wear animal masks. Which one is that? Is that Primal
Scream?
Okay,
don't worry.
The concept of the episode felt good to me.
Yeah.
Fox was almost a good villain until he got kind of rapey at the end.
Oh, touchy grabby, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I forgot how much I hated that episode until last night I was reading my notes, and I'm like, there's like 3 seasons worth of content in one episode, it felt like. But the last like 10 minutes were okay. But I think my thing with that episode was, like, it had a lot of good components, but, again, pacing. They didn't, like, nothing breathed, really. So I made quick notes of this. This is, what, episodes are 42, 43 minutes?
Plus 5 minutes of rockin' theme song anthems and Alfred's narration.
Yeah. So in this entire episode, I believe Barbara and Wade have a subplot. There's a Helena Reese trust plotline going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's Helena in the gang plotline going on, where she is infiltrating, but also she's just now enjoying cutting loose and embracing her Catwoman side.
And she's trying to work her way up to the Kingpin, who she doesn't realize is Harley.
Yes. Dinah is grieving. Harley is doing Underworld expansion stuff.
Yeah, is Dinah like in that episode more than 2 minutes of being sad?
I don't remember, but I just counted off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we have about 7 different plot lines going on in one episode. That's a lot for 40 minutes, especially in the hands of people that didn't know what they were doing. And I thought it would have been a really interesting thing to do, like, if it had taken place over a couple episodes, it would have worked a lot better. Because, like...
Of watching her slowly gain access to and infiltrate?
Yeah, because if you do that, like, you can allow all those arcs to build over. Because this is the one where she finally gives Reese the ring, I think. Or returns him the ring.
But it's also the episode where she, like, betrays his trust worse than ever.
Yeah, yes. I think, like, I did the rough math. In, like, a matter of, like, 30 minutes of actual episode time, he gets the ring and then returns it because he's upset. But, like, there's never anything built up there. But, like, it was just, like, just shit was happening left, right, and center. And, like, some didn't make any sense. So, like, she's tipping off Reese to where the gang is. Him and his partner doing a stakeout. You've never seen his partner outside of the first episode, I think. And it may have been a different partner.
Oh, weird. I instantly liked their relationship, even though it is not built on or anything.
So, like, the gang has no reason to suspect that they're being trailed. They're being, like, there's a lookout on them. One of them goes to the convenience store, sees, like, a schlumpy guy buy a donut, like, he's a cop.
While I was there, I saw a dumpy guy in a cheap suit grabbing some coffee, sneaking a donut.
Cops.
That is
and then they magically find the van, blow it up. They do a fake out death on Reese's partner. Reese is pissed because Helena didn't give the information. He finally trusts her again at the end. She trusts him, leaves him, doesn't give him the ring. She just, like, does the classic Batman dips out, but she, like, happens to leave this ring on, like, a piece of garbage. Thank God he looked around and someone else didn't find it.
Yeah.
But, like, so this episode takes place, what?
It's episode 6.
It's right after Dinah's mom dies. And so she gets a little bit of grieving, but seems to be fine with it by the end.
Yeah.
Where that should have probably, yes, she had an estranged relationship with her mother, but, like, it should have taken place over a couple episodes.
Wait, is that the episode where every time Dinah comes on screen, she has, like, one line, storms off, and then Oracle's like, I guess we're in the anger stage of grief or whatever.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, that is
They go through the 5 stages of grief with literally, like Graham just said, just like one-off lines and snarky lines.
A combined 1.5 minutes of screen time.
And it's a stupid idea. You're not going after these guys without backup.
All right, Dinah, calm down.
I am calm. I am calm.
Of a character insisting that they aren't grieving.
Yeah, and then, so, like, you just have all these friggin' balls in the air. They don't land any of them, really. But, like, if you make it the beginning of season 2. Because if you have season 1 end with, like, Black Canary dying, and, like, Reese and Helena beginning to trust each other, you then, like, back in the day when it was like, oh, we got, like, this 6 months off, and you're like, oh, like, where's this gonna go? And the way the episode starts is there's a theft, and Helena takes her helmet off, and you're like, wait, was this a flashback? I didn't actually know what was happening.
Yeah, that was confusing.
So if you do that, like, in the second season, it opens up and you're like, wait, well, what happened in that time off between? You can have her, like, climbing the ranks and then slowly reveal that she's working with Reese, not be like, pop off the helmet, and the next scene being like, howdy, Reese, high five, I got your information.
Yep, they did do that.
And, like,
I agree. That could have been an entire, like, season opener of, like, Helena focused, not explaining, like, is she just bad now? Is this the past? Is this, like... They could have played with that
And,
better.
like, even if they did it, like, maintaining it's in the present, you have Dinah grieving, you have Barbara not necessarily fully knowing what's going on with Helena. You have enough new ideas that you can play with while still building off of what happened in the first season. But instead, they just crammed it all into about 40 minutes, which, like, again, make this a 3-4 episode arc. It probably works pretty well. But
so just bad pacing and kind of, like, wasted ideas.
Yeah. Do I have anything else? Let's see. So I had So Much Happens and Nothing Has Impact, such as, like, because, like, McNally gets hurt, Reese gets angry. You never hear about McNally again. So I was like, oh yeah, he's fine.
Yep, he was never in the show again. That was weird to me. He existed only to be that fake out death.
Yeah.
That
I just covered it. Yeah, it was just like there was just so much going on, and they should have just taken a breath, slowed down a bit.
You may have just convinced me this episode was worse than I thought it was.
And I was just like, because it was just like as it went along, I was just like, it was the Rise of Skywalker, Birds of Prey. We're like, we just gotta get everything in, pedal to the metal.
Right.
For some reason, Oracle gets a medal at the end.
Right. Okay. I was like, I don't remember that. I see what you're doing there. Okay.
Sorry.
I think I eventually decided my least favorite episode was Slick. I didn't like that gross, weird, liquefied villain. Thought he was dumb. He was weirdly sexual in just a lot of ways. There's a scene where Reese punches him in the face, and his response is, "Was that good for you?"
Was it good for you? Because it sure is for me.
And I was like, what the fuck is this character supposed to be? Like, what is going on?
He was channeling Tim Curry from 77.
There's a moment where they capture Slick. They have him in cuffs in the police precinct. He turns into liquid and disappears. It's never mentioned. At no point is any character like he got away. Just he shows up again in front of a bunch of cops, and one of the cops goes, "Hey, you?" It's like, what? Haven't you been looking for this guy?
Also, when he escaped, did he not just suddenly appear in Harley Quinn's shower?
Yep, he did that.
Okay.
That was weird. Yep, that was part of it. That was weird.
Okay, I want to make sure, because the way you phrased this, I was like, wait, did they like see him again right away, or was like that later on in the episode?
I think I made a bunch of notes about not liking Dinah, but the main thing is at this point,
really?
it's early enough in the season that she's still trying to earn everyone's trust, and she kind of helps in a way, or at least doesn't get in the way enough that by the end of the episode, they're like, maybe you can live in the clock tower. Maybe you can join the team. Maybe we can trust you after an entire 2 episodes of earning their trust. But then there's like a line of dialogue from Oracle that the takeaway, like the lesson to be learned here, the line is something like,
I told you trust had to be earned, and I was wrong. Trust is a gift.
The entire point of the episode is that you just earned their trust. What?
Because that happened with Huntress 2 times too, where she's like, I finally trust you, and the next scene she's like, except I don't. And then she storms away like, but what?
I don't think the writers understood the trust at all. There was also apparently, in my notes, the first episode to have the plastic frisbees that were so lame.
Not a batarang, it's the Birds of Prey logo. It's like a giant frisbee.
It looks like it would be less lethal than these like plastic batarangs I had as a kid.
Yes.
Like it looked like a shitty frisbee.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're only in like 2 episodes. There's a lot of things in the show that are only in 2 episodes.
I think the Lady Shiva one, Barbara pulls one out, like as Batgirl, and she pulled out a mallet space.
What is it?
I call it mallet space when you see cartoons where like Bugs Bunny's like, you know, that kind of thing. And she's like just standing there like this, and then like reaches behind her back and then pulls out a frisbee.
You keep doing it the wrong way.
I know,
with
it's
the
not.
camera.
Sorry.
I guess you're right-handed.
Yeah, and just like whips with this giant frisbee from behind her, and the thing's almost as wide as she is. And it's like, wait, you sitting on it?
At least, I don't know, Batman had grappling hooks and everything that seemed excessive, but for the most part, he had tiny smoke pellets,
They were
kept on him somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. That episode was just bad in ways it was just bad TV. I'm not surprised the series failed when the pilot was so weak and then the second episode was so dumb.
Yeah. Suppose they debuted to huge ratings at the first 3 weeks, and then it just like nosedived.
Probably when people realized it wasn't getting better. I'm just seeing now that the 4th episode was the one with Harley Quinn's super fast aging baby, where the baby suddenly turns into a teenager, kills someone, and there's like a 15-second thing of cutting to people going, and then the next character goes, ugh, and then someone else goes, ugh, and then they're like all trying to process the fact that this like newborn kid killed someone, and then the next scene is Huntress sitting him down being like, you see, killing people is bad.
You killed a man. Even though it was an accident, you cannot do that.
And he's like, I don't see why. And then he kills like 4 more people in that.
Yeah.
That was a weird episode. I don't like it. I don't hate it.
I figured it was
just
cat.
weird.
I was like, what is on my leg? Jesus.
I don't know. At this point, I just have dumb things to rattle off, I guess. The episode is Black Canary.
Black Canary
Sins
is...
of the Mother?
Sins of the Mother.
It's the episode where they do someone is secretly someone else's child twice. They do it with Dinah and Reese.
Yeah, because it does happen.
Yeah.
Because Reese gets revealed at the end that he is Hawk's son.
Yeah.
And he has the real friggin' snarky, okay, Dad. He like slams the door of the hospital shut.
Cool reveal, guys. They do that twist in like almost every other episode. It's like no one can just be a villain. They're like a villain or a hero because they're related to someone who was a villain and a hero in the much more interesting original Gotham. It's the episode where it's Lady Shiva. Batgirl like goes into her weird isolated room that's enormous and has nothing else in it and has like fog rolling through it and just has the Batgirl tube.
Her Batcave.
Which I have no idea.
Her Bat Roost?
Why is it such a Batman thing to have your costume in a tube? Do other superheroes do that? It exists in every Batman thing. That must be from the comics or something.
Oh, that is. Because I mean, Bruce always had a thing with like trophies. It's like the original look of the Batcave was whenever he would always take something from like one of the crimes he solved. So that's why like when you look at the old stuff, like there's the giant coin in the Batcave and like the T-Rex and all that stuff because it's stuff that like, he took from different crimes. But I believe it was T-Rex. When Jason Todd died, he put that costume in the tube. Dick Grayson Lucy puts that costume in the tube. He gets a new costume, puts his in the tube, and then it becomes this thing of like, it's almost this weird sports thing. Like we're gonna put up pictures of the old championship teams.
Funny.
So when you walk through these halls, you know where you are.
Okay.
I'm now never going to look at a Batman movie again thinking about the costumes like the jerseys hanging in the rafters. You will respect them.
Even though it's just 6 different of Bruce's costumes. He keeps like
people
honoring
who did,
himself. Yeah, or people who died.
And that picture through the Oilers lens of like drunken Tim Drake being Gretzky being like, it was better in the 80s. Because like it also always gets into stuff where like other people be like, oh man, so this is Robin shit. And then he's like, yeah, don't fucking touch. And like Damien walks by and like hacks him with a kendo stick and he's like, yeah, that's my costume, bitch.
This show acknowledged Dick Grayson more than once.
Well, what was up with this Robin character? What was his story?
and we never got Nightwing, which was too bad. But I assume they were like, we're building up to that. That's coming in a later season.
Because I was in my notes, I kept mentioning, I was like, "Where's Dick?" Good line with Dick, but ooh, that's phrasing. But I never wrote down anything. I think one of them was Barb makes some comment with Dick, and I think Helena goes, "He has what? Where?" Yeah.
Oh, right.
And because I wrote half a line, I'm like, I think this is funny, but I don't know, and I'm not going back to find it because I don't know where it is.
And I think there's a moment where Alfred just like drops something Master Dick.
Yeah.
And so it's just like he exists. It didn't say what he's up to or anything. It just...
So, I mean, if you follow the basic logic of Robin eventually becomes Nightwing, Nightwing moves to Bloodhaven, and Bloodhaven does get name dropped in the series.
In this show?
Yeah.
I guess I don't really know what Bloodhaven is, I guess.
Bloodhaven, if I'm correct, is like, it's a part of... It's like another section of Gotham.
Oh, it's like Hell's Kitchen? It's a really unfortunately named part of town where people want to live?
It's BLUD.
Okay. Sorry.
But yeah... Because I remember, like, in my notes, said, Bloodhaven's a thing. That's cool.
The reason I brought up this damn episode and the scene, which I at one point Googled something about the show, and I found someone's article where they called it Oracle's sadness room, where she just goes to sadly stare at her Batgirl costume. Did you notice that they play the most copyright-friendly version of Danny Elfman's Batman theme?
No, but I did notice in different points in the series where the music very much felt like it felt like they blended in bits of the old Batman score.
They would usually only do it for like a second and a half at a time, where you're like, oh, that was totally like a sample or something. This happened, and I like paused the show, pulled it up on my phone, listened to it again, rewound, played it again, because I was like, that was Danny Elfman, wasn't it?
I forgot there was fog in this.
Yeah, for some reason it's a foggy room.
It's really dusty, okay?
And then it kind of drifts away, and like that's the extent of what they use of the theme. It's like 4 or 5 seconds or whatever. But it's even the way I would say it's like lit and filmed is more in line with the Batman movies. It feels different than the rest of this show.
Even so, that shot of her coming in is like, if you think about it, that was the end of all of the 2 Schumacher movies
when they would like run through the foggy light.
Yeah,
exactly. Like I think this show
wanted to embrace it. Didn't have the money to do it.
I don't know why they didn't. It's totally the Schumacher Batman.
It is. There are the nipples. You're right. I never caught that before. Holy shit.
I thought that was really... I don't know. That just blew me away when it took so long for me to finally realize.
Check the boots. If he has skates, it's the Batman and Robin costume.
Oh, man. I love that shit so much. Why is their Batmobile equivalent a Hummer? Also, only in 2 episodes. But it's a fucking Hummer.
What? Driving like a maniac. When did you become a backseat driver from hell?
Really should check all 3 mirrors when you're changing lanes.
There's like 2 scenes in the entire show where they drive everywhere together, and it's a Hummer.
I have literally no recollection of this.
I don't know why. It didn't. There's no commentary there. There's no reason. There's no secret. Like, it's just why. Why?
Okay.
That was a thing.
Sorry, on travel, there's one point that I want to say it's in the episode where they have to protect Reese's dad. Helena and Reese make a realization, like, I'll meet you there. And they both go their separate ways.
That's in my notes.
Okay.
He's across town at 26 and Paley.
I'll see you there.
Which is like, maybe that's funny. Maybe it's like, oh, she's faster than he is, jumping across the rooftops, but it was still...
It looks like a joke they wrote for Superman, and then we're like, oh shit, wrong series. We mixed up the page of the script.
I like that one too. In the pilot episode, Helena is like joking with Oracle, and one of them says, oh, is your spider sense tingling?
Yes, there was a couple funny lines like that.
I'm telling you, there's something wrong here. I can feel it.
Is your spider sense tingling?
Is that a common thing? I'm genuinely like, is Marvel Comics a comic book within the DC universe?
So I definitely know I've read comics where they reference each other.
Okay.
It's usually a throwaway line like that. Like, I don't know, did you ever watch that Spider-Man cartoon in the 2000s that was like CG and with Neil Patrick Harris?
What the fuck?
It ran for like 1 or 2 seasons. It was supposed to take place
He was Peter Parker?
Yes. It was supposed to take place between Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2. And one of the things he would do, instead of just being like him like narrating as he's swinging, he would just like record himself talking. So it would be just like him with his video camera, just like sitting on a building, like talking to it, like doing a blog. And at one point he makes comments like, "Everyone thinks I'm so grim. I'm like, what am I, Batman?" And he puts both his hands up and makes the ears. And he's like, "I must defend the city, vengeance," and like just like throwaway lines like that.
That's funny. I like the idea of them being playful with each other like that. You know.
Well, I mean, like even back in the day, like when Stan Lee was writing, it was he referred to DC as the distinguished competition. Like, stuff like that. Like, there's always little,
like that.
like little jokes and jests, like, who do you think you are, Superman? And
yeah, I don't like the way that people pit the movies against each other. No, the comics have always been, like, nice and, like, I don't know.
You look at the characters, and they literally just steal from each other blatantly.
Definitely.
Like, DC did a series a couple years ago called Dark Knight's Heavy Metal, and it's just, like, all these evil Batmen appear on Earth. Marvel's doing one called Dark. And I saw, like, the promos for it on Instagram, and I'm like, I think I've seen this before. And I'm scrolling through, and one of them literally looks like it's Captain America, but he's got, like, a spiky shield, a pentagram on his chest, a loincloth dangling down, and this weird big helmet.
Okay.
He's wearing his normal costume with, like, a loincloth off the front, like a knight would wear.
Okay. Oh, and okay, not like a Tarzan.
No. There's, like, an addition to his costume with a loincloth.
Like a knight. Cool.
And he looks almost identical to one of the Batmen from Dark Knight's Heavy Metal, who had a giant shield, a sword, was all spiky, had the cloth, and had a slightly weird helmet. And, like, the top comment was like, man, I feel like I've seen this before. You guys recognize this? And, like, they tagged DC.
I mean, yeah, there's only so many ideas out there.
Oh, yeah. And that was one of the comments was like, because people were like, man, be original. It's like, really? Like, come on.
How many characters are just, who have existed for decades at this point, are
DC
just
DC literally has Superman and Captain Marvel, Shazam. And the same thing. Yeah. Here's a couple things from the early episodes I was just like, why? They keep referring to, like, when Helena's mom dies, they're like, famed cat burglar Catwoman, yet no one knows who Batman and the Joker are for some reason.
That's a good point. One thing I complimented this series for is the Batman mythos. Is that, like, Jesse has never heard of Batman. And, like, when she brings up, he was like, hey, dressed up as a bat and he fought crime. And he was like, you're lying to me. There's no way this was real. It's like, people don't even know whether or not he was real, which I think is super cool.
Yeah.
Even though he's been so influential, Arkham exists and, like, things. And Joker definitely
Clayface exists. Clayface knows Helena's Batman's daughter for some reason.
I did like that it was just like, oh, people don't even know if Batman was real. But you're right, they totally... What?
They, like, flip-flop back and forth on it.
That wasn't consistent,
also,
wasn't it?
On that note, the first episode where she has to go into, like, the sewers, and it ends up being where Barbara got shot, and they're like, oh, I know who it is! And it turns out to be, like, the family friend of Helena's. Why the fuck did he leave a family photograph just casually laying on a desk in the sewers? Because that was the only thing connecting him to the crimes.
Oh my god, I don't even remember that. That sounds very dumb.
Because it was like, because Dinah had, like, the rig on so Barbara could see everything.
Right,
and she's, like, walking around, and
they, like, never used that again, did they?
What? This guy had, like, a desk in the sewers, like, oh, I gotta put a picture of my wife down, and gonna make sure I got my apple, and...
I so barely remember that first episode. That's such a strange... It's such a weird thing.
Yeah. And it's because in my notes a little bit, why is there a random picture in the sewer for him?
Here's one of mine that I... like, 3 separate times they use the trope of, this isn't you can fight this. Episode 7... It's when she's on the rage drug. In episode 10... Or no, episode 10 is the rage drug. Episode 7 is when he's fighting with becoming the Crawler. Dark Strike.
Yeah.
And then in the final episode, it's with the hypnotism. That is... And I only started noticing it later in the season. They might have used it more than that. I realized I really hate that trope in general, that, like, some villain created something that is overpowering your mental faculties, and all you have to do is care more than the chemical is...
Heart of the cards, Yugi.
That is, it's a heart of the cards.
Sorry, I was inspired by the Yu-Gi-Oh cards down there.
It's just a dumb trope. They used it a lot. I thought the villain in episode 9 was dumb and useless, and he was just kind of there.
That was like a walk through walls, wasn't it?
Yep, and it was stupid. I wrote that he was Edward Cullen if he was the Terminator, not Robert Pattinson. Edward Cullen if he was the Terminator.
I don't quit. Ever.
And for whatever reason, they defeated him when they pushed him, and he accidentally phased himself he carbonated himself into a lead door.
Yeah.
He killed himself in that moment. That didn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, I think I wrote it, why did he merge with the door? And I'm sure they gave some explanation like, oh, if we use an excess of lead, it'll throw off his molecular structure.
You see, the molecular structure of the lead will impede his molecular dispersion.
Do you mind?
Right, sorry.
That is a running thing in the show that I thought was really funny, is that Oracle would spill out a bunch of jargon and technical terms and everything, and Huntress every single time would do, like, without these exact words, like the English please kind of thing. But 50% of the time, Oracle's explanation was like, I'm going to rig you up with a camera so I can see what's happening, and I'm going to put a sound piece in your ear so you can hear what I'm saying to you, and that way we can maintain two-way conversation while you go out and do this mission. English, please, Oracle.
I'm going to give you these glasses so you can see the invisible person. I'm sorry, what?
It was, I don't know, I thought it was funny how they were trying to, I think, make a statement about Helena's character, but it just kind of made her look dumb. And, yeah. I shit on a lot of the villains. Facial scar guy from Gladiatrix. His white suit scar vocal cadence I wrote is if Kenneth from 30 Rock were a Bond villain.
Lively. One of the reasons I lured you down here.
that was my comment.
Here's the thing. I don't watch 30 Rock. I know exactly who you're talking about.
I don't know what was going on there.
The one other dumb thing I had was the episode with the growing baby. He attacks the teen dance club, I believe. Can you explain what a teen dance club is?
That's what the threat is? Is that
there was at one point where he runs away.
Okay.
And Dinah finds him at a teen dance club and he just goes like rogue and just like throws people through the door.
Keeping the youths off the street.
And again,
the teen dance
this was
club.
One of those things where I was like, this is very much, they're like, okay, we got Smallville. We got Buffy. I'm just going to take a couple things from Buffy. Because Buffy had the bronze where I was like, it was the same thing where it was like, it was a bar. Everything about it looks like a bar. And you realize, no, they're supposed to be like 15.
Yes. Yeah, that was always weird in that show. I never understood that everyone just like went out on school nights to this bar.
Yeah, they were all straight edge.
I feel like I had a few lines that I thought were particularly, I don't know, just like jokes that kind of worked. I don't know. In episode 3, she's like threatening to basically throw him off a building or whatever to kill him.
You'll die too.
I can live with that.
That was just corny enough to get a laugh out of me. There's a thing at the end of episode 4 where, like, I don't even know. It might be worth finding because I don't think I can do it justice how stupid the line was.
How is this possible?
They were fighting a coordinated attack, like a team.
That was what undid their evil master plan, is that they fought together. You're like a SWAT team unit of 3 times more people fighting as a coordinated attack unit.
Part of the cards.
The delivery on it was so ridiculous. They fought as, I don't even know what you would call it.
I have an additional observation at the end of that episode. So they keep hammering home that was Helena never had a birthday or something like that.
Okay.
And then the baby keeps asking for a birthday. Like, don't worry, we'll do your birthday. And then he's like an 85-year-old man dying on the couch like, look, we brought you a cupcake. And they finish that scene and then they promptly do a birthday for Helena as a completely different scene. And I feel like this series did that way too much where it's like they'd show you something and they'd walk it back and just redo it in a different way.
Yeah, I see what you're saying for sure.
Or like, we finally trust each other a minute later. Okay, I don't actually trust you. We're going to solve this like 3 episodes later.
How is the rapidly growing child episode not my least favorite? I don't know why it's not, but it isn't. I can tell you still that it is not, even though that's the dumbest shit I've ever seen.
I feel like it fit just nicely into the weird like freak of the week where you're like, you know what? I can just shut my brain off and roll with this. And like, it created like fun moments of, I feel like Dinah gets to play the parent for a little bit, Oracle gets to play the parent for a minute. And as much as it was shitty of like Helen being like, killing's bad, like it was still like she was the one that could relate to him.
Yeah.
And you could see it as also being the thing that would slowly soften her up to being like, oh, maybe my parents weren't so bad. No, one was fucking Batman.
Right. Not going to read off all the things that I wrote that I thought were funny lines. If you have any, share. I don't know. Maybe I'll edit in the ones that I have. I'm not going to list them all.
Covered.
You've maxed out your notes.
My dumb shit that I listed because I was like, I had a lot of dumb shit. I'm like, I'm going to trim it down, and I think I've covered everything.
It's just hard for me to picture you and Hot being from the same family.
Yeah, well, my mother's black.
I need you to take a look at your computer screen.
Not much for small talk today, huh?
Hey, how you doing? How's the job? Good? Great. Computer, please.
In the cage to the right! The Green Scorpion!
Green Scorpion.
I have a few things I would call not dumb shit. In the pilot, they do a flashback of Joker, and it's whoever in makeup, they never really show him, dubbed over by Mark Hamill.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Batgirl. Past tense.
That was like a fanboy dream to have Hamill voice a live-action Joker, because he would never play it well, I don't think. He doesn't really have the body type or anything, but that was awesome.
And I saw that clip, like, back in high school.
Because it was such, like, a dream of, like, they have live-action Hamill's Joker.
Yeah, and, like, I want to say it was, like, high school or beginning of university, and it was, like, the grainiest YouTube video I've ever seen. And then I realized, no, it's because they decided to do this awkward filter over the Joker where the only thing in focus is the gun pistol.
Right. They were doing a thing there, and probably for the best. If they were never planning to use the Joker, then, like, don't show us the Joker, you know? I thought there was an interesting parallel to the end of the Primal Scream episode where Helena essentially offers to kill Fox for Reese. Like, Reese wants to kill Fox because he thinks his partner's dead.
Yeah.
And Helena's like, no, you're a cop. I'll kill him. And I was like, that's the Dark Knight.
Fair, yeah, I didn't think of that.
I thought that was interesting. Does DC not have its own adamantium or vibranium or anything? Because in the Gladiatrix, there's a line where they get put in the cage, and they're like, this cage is made out of titanium something.
Bars are made from titanium something. They're impossible to break.
And I was like, you guys couldn't have used like a fun, cool...
I don't think they do, actually.
Interesting.
I also have one other observation on that episode. They put friggin' Helen in the cage. It's already been established she can jump buildings. Why don't she just leave? She can literally hop the cage.
Was there not a roof on that cage?
I don't think so. I know, but like, the plot's in the way. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get there.
I guess I want to talk about Clayface the tiniest bit, because he's like the only real, only Batman villain. Like, Lady Shiva is like a real comic book thing. But I think Clayface is the only other from the comics villain.
And they did a clever nod to it. So Clayface in the comics, there's been multiple.
Okay.
The main one that we know of is Basil.
I wanted to say Barlow, but Basil Carlo. That's the only one I really know.
So one of the other ones, I don't know the full chain, but it's like, so Clayface, and then there's another 2 Clayfaces that happen, and one of them, he gets like a Mr. Freeze dome, he has a cape.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not good.
Okay.
But there's also like a female Clayface, and this is like back in like the 90s before like Marvel and DC were like, all right, if you like Bullseye, here's Lady Bullseye. We're going to make their own separate character. Not that I'm knocking it, I do appreciate them, but there was a weird period where every villain all of a sudden had a female counterpart that did the same thing.
Right.
These 2 Clayfaces hook up and have a baby, and they call him Cassius Clayface.
Okay. Great name.
He sings like a butterfly and floats like a bee. But Junior in the Clayface episode is Chris Cassius.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a little wink at him being like the other Clayface. Because that was in the comics, it wasn't like they could all just transform the way the original could. One of them like melted people when he touched them, like it was acid touch on that. So it was like, oh, that's like a clever little wink. But
okay. And that was yet another one of the instances of like, by the way, this guy is the child of another character, because they did that a lot in the show. My note on Clayface is that he looked like Wade Wilson and The Thing had a baby, and he sounded like John C. Reilly trying to play Gambit.
Now that sounds like a noble endeavor, but what's in it for me?
That was my
that's a good take, yeah. Because I think I wrote my notes like, what the hell is this accent?
I don't know, non-existent. It's not in the real world. It's implaceable. I don't know what they were going for. It was fucking weird.
It was like he had a lisp. And
it was kind of Southern gentleman, but not.
I did appreciate that he was a sculptor, though. I thought that was a clever little twist.
Yeah, they gave him kind of a cool like motive and everything too, that he like makes people suffer because he wants
the emotion.
He wants to see the emotion because he wants to like capture that in his sculptures and his own like that was neat. I don't know. You and I in that other video where we talked about like our Batman wish list talked about how underutilized Clayface is and the entire history of like live action Batman stuff, because it would be the most interesting villain because all the mysteries and everything. So once again, underutilized, wasted.
He's one of the best parts, I think, personally, of the Harley Quinn cartoon.
Oh, cool. I'm only 1 episode into that.
He is just a complete idiot. So they'll be like, all right, we got to break in here. Clayface go create a distraction. Like, but what's my motivation? What is my character?
Okay, so they make him like silly.
Like they turn the actor aspect up to like 11.
I'm kind of into that. I'm interested in that. There's like one moment that I really liked in episode 10 where Reese is trying to break into the Fight Club.
Yes.
And he's just kind of going on his own, trying to figure things out. And then all of a sudden, like, Oracle contacts him, triangulates his position, and starts like directing him. And he's kind of like, "Are you who Huntress is always talking to?" And like, and what is happening? How do you like know where I am? And she kind of gets to be like, "Don't worry about it." And she's like doing her job very effectively. And I thought that was really that whole interaction.
It becomes a gag for the rest of the series where he's like just walking down the street and the phone rings. He looks at it. He's like, "Hello." And she's like, "Hey Reese, what's up?" They like give him a message. He's like, "Oh, how do you do this?"
Yeah, like that could have been played up more. That was like a good thing in the show. I think one of my biggest things here, like there was an insistence throughout the whole thing to keep Batman and Gotham and Batman's villains, his rogues gallery, and like those connections at arm's length. And I guess that's playing off the fact that Huntress is like trying to distance herself from that stuff. So the show is as well. But it was at its best every time Alfred and Oracle in scenes together, talking about her time as Batgirl, how she's grown, showing flashbacks of her as Batgirl, including real villains, and like all of that stuff was better.
It worked best when it embraced the mythos but want to build off of it.
Yes, not just like rehashing, like doing something different, like the fun twist on the Gordon Batman relationship and stuff. Like that stuff is better. Basically, I just think that they should have utilized that stuff better and more. I think we could just wrap up by talking about what this show should have been. Because if we were going to ask the question, do we want more? No. not in its current form. Definitely not.
I mean, I'm quite forgiving, and I think I was interested enough by like the ending of the last couple, like the building blocks they laid out in the last few episodes. Was like maybe a second season could have been warranted, and I would have given it a shot and see how it was. And if it was continued on like this, I would have then shit canned it. But I also completely understand why this got the axe, and I'm amazed it made it to 13 episodes. If I'm being honest,
that they didn't do like a mid-season cut.
Yeah, especially because like the way these simply break, you know where that roughly would have fallen? Primal Scream. The other thing I was like, I think this series would have worked better if they cut some of the characters out, which is funny to say because it's only got like 6 characters. Like all the stuff with Helena, Barbara, and Alfred, those 3 like always felt like they had a real relationship.
Yeah,
because like there's one point specifically I remember Huntress, like I think she roasts Barbara and she walks by Alfred and they do like the high five, low five thing, and it's just like it's so weird seeing like supposed to like a 65-year-old British man be like, yeah.
I really love the idea that, like, I don't know, the show took place in, like, a pre-established world, but then they were, like, I think that maybe part of the idea of Dinah was, like, well, this is an accessibility thing of, like, here's someone who's new to this world to help you play alongside the audience.
The gateway in, and
then they didn't do that.
Yeah.
They did not do that. I think I mapped out my preferred show.
Okay.
When I think, taking what worked about this, Dinah's gone.
Yes.
Of course, obviously. 1000%.
I also would have jettisoned Dinah.
Barbara is Batgirl.
Okay.
Black Canary replaces Dinah.
Okay.
Alfred is the guy in the chair.
Okay.
Huntress is now the inexperienced member of the team.
Okay.
Everything about her character is the same. She's the same age and all that, same actress. It's just that she's the newbie and everyone else is there being like, that's not really how we do things. It's weird that you don't wear a mask.
You have no secret identity. You don't wear glasses. You don't wear a mask.
She's kind of got a point. Okay. I don't wear a mask for combat purposes. All right, they're itchy, they make you sweat.
It's like this old guard, new guard thing where they're trying to like teach her to be like them, but she's like doing it her own rebellious own way. Every episode or like half the episodes start or end with this like building narrative character arc thing of Huntress and her therapist, like talking about what's changed, what's going on in her life, what, I don't know, just building and developing that. And the overarching villain of the season is the Hawk family.
Okay.
The crime family, and at the end of the season, this is how it happens, is that Huntress is like trusting of her therapist or whatever and spills her guts about like everything important about her life and gives away a lot of secrets and things that Harley can then use against her. The season ends with her still doing that to someone that the audience does not know is Harley Quinn, and then there's like a moment of like reveal that this was Harley Quinn.
That's the door shot.
Pardon?
That's when you do the door shot.
Yeah, do the door shut in the final episode there, and then it's like a thing of like, oh shit, that could be the end of the second last episode or whatever. I don't even know, or springboard in the second season. I don't know, but that should have been a secret for like a very long time and given you somewhere like fun and interesting to go. I think that's it. I think there's enough that worked about the show, and I liked a lot of the cast and characters. They just need to be shuffled and used differently.
Yeah. So your idea, one of the videos I watched last night had the same thing. It was like you still have Oracle, but it's Oracle and Black Canary, and then they find Bruce's like long lost daughter.
Okay.
And she comes in, and it's the same thing. The old guard, the new guard, and they're bringing someone along who doesn't quite understand. And yeah, with the Harley Quinn thing, I think you do it like because those series always have like the big climax, and there's like the 10-minute end of the season episode where they go through everything. They're like they're wrapping up all the loose ends, and you have the last scene being Helena like talking about how everything's changed to Harley Quinn, and she gets up and leaves and shuts the door, and you say Harleen Quinzel. Roll credits.
Yeah,
cue Michelle Branch. You have 6 months of waiting for the next arc.
Wrap up the Hawk family stuff. It can still be Jesse's dad, or he can still be a part of that. Yeah. That can be a fun mid-season twist or whatever. There's a lot of things about it that I would like keep as a show, but like so much of it just didn't pace well or work well or mesh, or I hated Dinah, and that's what it came down to.
For me, like with this series, it was. I feel like I've said this way too much with DC movies. There's good bones there.
Yeah,
and then they just fuck everything else up. I'm looking at you, Green Lantern. Let's talk about that one day.
That would be fun. I've never seen it end to end. I've only seen like a third of that movie.
It's fun. But like with me, I'm cutting Wade. I'm cutting Dinah.
Ooh, yeah, Wade cut. I have a note somewhere. Wade is too handsome and cool for this show. He should have been, I don't know, a superhero or something.
If I'm correct, in the unaired pilot, it's actually him and Barbara breaking up due to like her giving the constant runaround, and then there's like tension of that building out.
Okay.
So I figured it was gonna be like when I watched the pilot, and then he's like there for a second. It was gonna be like they eventually come around at the end of the season, they'd be back together. Cut Wade, cut Dinah. I don't know, give Harley Quinn more time. I would like to see that every time they introduce a villain, they're automatically the son or daughter of another villain. Oh wait, no, sorry, they already did that.
Oh, right. They did that to a T.
I do like the idea of like the mob boss being the overarching villain. With it being the 13 episode arc, you could almost, and I mean this is projecting like modern TV backwards, do sort of what Daredevil does or did, God rest its soul, where they did like there's the overarching main story, but it's like 3 mini arcs.
Yeah, okay. I had a question for you that super reminds me of. Is that like this villain of the week thing, I think that's just what CW did. Maybe they still do. I never watched Arrow actually. But like that's a super in line with CSI and shows like that were popular at the time. And you can tell that this is CSI meets superheroes. It's like what they were doing with the show. Yeah. And I think, and I don't know if there's a superhero show in between, like Smallville and Daredevil. Daredevil ruined it. The fact that it was like one main villain and the focus was on Matthew Murdock and Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, that was the entire show. And then there's like, I don't know, small things that come up, but that is the show. I think it ruined the villain of the week thing for me. I don't know. Maybe there's other shows that do it well.
Well, I feel like even in Daredevil, you can still kind of get away with it at times, but it has to work like naturally, like build into it.
Yeah, and or make it a couple episodes.
Yeah, because like by definition, like villains of the week, like when you fight, say, the Russians in one episode, when he does like the stairwell scene, that's technically a villain of the week, but it ties into the overall narrative. It's not like Daredevil goes and fights Stiltman.
Right.
They referenced him in the TV series. It was amazing. I got so excited.
Stiltman is a Daredevil villain?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has giant legs.
Are they his real legs? They are stilts?
They're mechanical stilts, so they can make him like 8 stories tall.
Okay.
But it was one of those bits where it's like, you watching it, you're like, okay, just metal in the corner or whatever, it's a piece of armor. For me, I'm like, Stiltman. I don't ever want to see Stiltman on TV, but holy shit.
That's funny.
Graham, when you edit this later, we're going to keep things on track and not talk as long. We are currently sitting at just shy of 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I knew. I don't know. Any finishing comments? I have nothing else to
I got nothing.
We've probably said it all.
Yeah.
I'll have like end card things if anyone's curious to watch us talk excessively long about Batman related stuff. I'll link to those if anyone was super into this format of two guys go way too in depth about a comic book thing.
Do you want to pull on my dad's back issues and go in depth on those?
Could do.
I've had that as a pipe dream for years.